Jae-hui was sitting in the back seat of the car, and the driver asked him why he always carried 2 copies of the script with him. The guy answered him that he was doing this just in case he suddenly lost 1 copy of the lantern. His interlocutor then said that Jae-hui prepares very diligently for each filming, after which the driver started his car and said that they needed to go already. Jae-hui closed his eyes and thought about the words that were said to him. After he opened his eyes, he understood perfectly well that everything they said was completely wrong. He had lied. After all, he's not actually taking 2 copies of the script so that he doesn't lose one of them under any circumstances. He always pretends to read one of these copies of the script, impressing everyone. And he needs another copy for something completely different. He puts it next to him and puts his hand on top of it. When his hand lies on one of the scripts, the system offers him to absorb the content of the drama train to youth. He sits in the back seat and continues to pretend that he is reading the script attentively. Yes, that's exactly why he carries a 2nd copy of the script, to absorb it with his abilities. On the set, a company manager named Park Jang approached Mr. Director about casting Song Moon Kai. He said that they were filming only with Team B, and isn't it too early to call him because he doesn't ignore them at all? The director was furious just because this idiot who just called him hung up. The guy, watching everything that was happening, thought that on that day on the set it was like a war. The director turned his head, saw the guy, and asked if he had really crossed over to them again. The guy smiled and greeted the director, who greeted him back. The guy asked the director if there was anything for him. There was hope in his eyes that this time there really was something. The director threw his head back and asked the guy if he really needed another scene. Then he added that the pile of papers that lay in front of him were all scripts for films that would begin filming in the first half of the year. There really was a whole mountain of scripts on the table. The guy thought that maybe they had nothing else to do. Jae-hui asked the director to let him take a look at these scripts. The director told the guy that he wouldn't steal them, so he could take anyone and read it. The guy thanked him. The director was a little surprised because this guy came almost every day to get noticed. The director looked at the guy as he read the first script he took his hands on and thought that he was so diligent, he hoped that they would pay attention to him. The guy opened the script and started reading. This story began with him seeing her on Sanmun-dong Street. These scripts had everything romantic, historical, drama, thriller script waiting for actors to bring to life. The guy understood that he would not be able to star in any of these films. Absolutely none of them. It was as if it were self-evident. He only got one supporting role in his career, a morning drama. And he understood perfectly well that no one would invite him to a serious role, but he still considered these scripts in order to find the strength to continue fighting. I read one of Sonora. He heard a loud creak which was rushing from the very place where the director was. One of the actors shouted that it was a melodrama again, and he told the director that he only wanted to play in the director's thriller. He was told that it was a melodrama, but at least he had the lead role. The actor's name was Moon Ke, and he said that he was tired of sappy love stories. Are there really no projects where he could express himself as an actor? The director said not to refuse, at least this time, and he will definitely try to offer him the wheel of a thriller in the near future. Jae-hui heard all this. In fact, other actors came to this agency to be given at least some role. Well, those actors who were at least a little famous already wanted to choose their roles themselves. This was the difference between a little-known actor and a superstar. Moon Ke told the director that he had been telling him for a long time that he didn't like melodramas. Jae-hui, despite trying to read the doctor, watched everything that was happening around him. After all, he was actually a little offended because this actor, who was demanding another role for himself, studied with him at the theater school. Well, now he had soared to an unattainable height, and it seemed that Jae-hui would never be able to catch up with him. And this made him feel even worse. But he knew that in this world everyone is for themselves, and if he talks to him now, they will only laugh at him. So he decided that it would be better not to get involved with him. He thought that he needed to go, and he didn't want to give him a reason to assert himself. At that moment, the guy pressed his thumb very hard on the legs that were in his hand. At that moment, a system appeared in front of him. He was a little confused by the surprise. He didn't know how to transport them and what this thing appeared before his eyes. But this table was written that he could absorb for the contents of the drama train. In his youth, he was very surprised. Come with me that he realized that this was the same Samara that was in his hands. The director suddenly asked what he was standing there. Already Wednesday, I looked at him and was a little surprised by his behavior. I don't understand what's going on with this guy. Jae-hui turned his head, smiled at the director, and asked him if he could read the script in the rehearsal room. Having received permission to do this, the guy very quickly headed to the rehearsal room so that no one would distract him. Holding this script in his hands, he thought that he was probably going crazy, but once again he tried to press hard on it with his thumb. And again, he saw the same thing before his eyes where it was written that he could absorb the contents of the drama, Rich Prince. Now he realized that it was not his imagination, and these tables in front of his eyes were real. The following was written: if he was absorbed into Re 100%, and he will be able to put into the role of the main character. The guy thought that this was not a dream after all, although in this it was difficult to believe him if he really could play the main role perfectly. Then he would be able to get hold of that very actor who had argued with the director and with whom he had worked together in the theater. The guy was a little hesitant. He tried to press his hand and removed it from the surface of the script. But then he decided that he should try anyway. And whatever will be, will be. He put his hand and said that he was ready to absorb the drama of the train to youth. Sonar strives to turn over one after another as if he was counting them so quickly. The guy thought that such a description of the character and everything that the author wanted to say was all filling his mind. He was very surprised. He even thought, could this really work somehow and he is not sleeping? That after some time he started calling the main role names, and it seemed to him that he was that very hero. He spoke in his own words about how Kang-hyun was just his friend and he didn't notice her. His eyes were the same son who was described in this script. He seemed to be playing this role, talking to her, saying that he was different, and he was 20 years old. At some point, his acting was realistic. He felt that he was living in a completely different world than she did. He could not have imagined before that absorbing the script would give such incredible acting skills. And the most important thing about this script is that he became like the main character of this script. It was incredible. He couldn't even say where this wonderful ability came from. But lately he had this ability, although he couldn't even qualify for a supporting actor award. In fact, no one invited him to the filming because they did not consider him a talented actor. And all this time he just watched as other actors received awards, but not him. Unexpectedly for himself, everything should change for him now, and he too will be able to do the same as other star actors. In fact, the life of a budding actor is very difficult. There are not as many of them as other idols. Because of each of them, there are no big production companies, so they go from casting to casting. And each of them has only one dream of debuting, and they again and again clutch at the straws of castings. Well, the policy of production companies is such that some people are destined to always fall into the same category. This is exactly what happened to our hero. He never got out of the vicious circle of supporting roles, but he knew that this time, everything would be completely different. Returning to the studio, he approached the senior manager and asked him if he was busy. The senior manager looked at the guy and asked him how he could help. It was the first team's general manager, Park Jang-ik. It is no exaggeration to say that most of the stars of the production center passed through his hands. The guy asked him about recruiting actors without experience for the drama train to youth. The manager smiled, raised his head, looked at the guy, and asked again if he really wanted to go to the casting, and he answered yes. The manager also said that he should know that the main role will be played by Song-yoon Ke. The guy thought about how when they were studying at the theater school, they were equals. Sure, Kvi thought, if the manager said so, then apparently he thinks that it will be uncomfortable for him to work with his classmate, but he said that he doesn't mind. The manager told the story well and asked the guy what role he was interested in. The guy replied that he would like to play Kim Do-hoon. Let the plot be an older classmate at the main character's school. His role is secondary, but there is a series where he is important for the development of the plot. The manager told Jae-hui that he knows he loves what he does, but is he sure it's not too hard for him? After all, this character will appear in all 16 episodes, and there are a lot of dialogues with him. The manager thought that it would be better for the guy to gain experience in less significant roles. He also believed that he needed to get used to filming, to which the guy replied that we lived. He was allowed to come to the casting. He would act as if this was his last chance in life. The manager had no choice but to agree with the guy and do it if he wanted. At that moment, another guy came up who also wanted to get to the casting of Train Youth. It was Lim Ju-won. He had already debuted 2 years ago, and it was believed that he had potential, so this company promoted him. Ju-won approached Jae-hui and said that it would not be like that, and they would not compete, and in this case, he would try his best. The guy smiled, looked at his new rival, and thought that they thought he was getting into trouble. Of course, he understood that he was seen more often in the rehearsal room and never on set, so how else could they look at him? But he knew for sure that this time, everything would be completely different. For this, he absorbed the script, and he learned the very essence of the train to youth. The guy expects this from himself and wished them both good luck at this casting. 7 people, including him, came to the casting of the drama train in his youth, and they were sitting in the saddle waiting for their turn to come. Lim Ju-won was the most experienced among them, And during his filming, he acquired good connections because he appeared on screen very often. He appeared in supporting roles in several dramas on weekends and weekdays on one of the channels. So he was in great demand, and he didn't even need to go to castings anymore. Lim Ju looked at the guy Lipo he was preparing for something for a long time, answered that just a little bit. Then he added that he probably has a lot of free time to prepare. At that moment, an assistant came out and asked the actors waiting for the casting if they were all for the same role. I didn't expect another guy to appear among the actors who said no. He's for a completely different role. The actors who were waiting for this casting turned their heads and looked at this guy and girl. They thought what beautiful young people they were. Also at that moment, the casting director appeared in the corridor and extended his hand to this guy and greeted everyone else. The HR director said that it was good and that they should go into the office and wait, pointing his finger at the guy who came last. The manager looked at this actor and said that he did a great job with his makeup and handed him the script. Go to Jae-hui. The manager said that he will see that he is worried he needs to relax and read the passage that he gave him. The girl was indignant that they were all given this. Dinar said that this was an excerpt from the script that they had to act out. He had little time, so there was no need for improvisation. He had to see how they would play specific passages from the script since the director has been holding casting since 9 a.m. He asked for understanding. The girl screamed that they had not prepared for this. Lim Ju also became very tense, and it seemed like beads of sweat were running down his face. He first asked for forgiveness, turning to the manager, asked them to learn the whole text. He replied that it was not necessary. They just needed to read it with feeling. The more natural, the better. Each of those who received the script began to quickly read the text. It was very inconvenient. They did not know how they could know the context of this passage. Many did not understand which character they were having a dialogue with. But the guy decided that the most important thing in this whole situation was not to panic and not to get nervous, and then everything would work out for him. Costin, the director, after a few minutes which he gave to get acquainted with the text of this passage, said that it was time to start, and Cho-sil, he would go first. I understand that she didn't know the text at all. She decided that she had screwed up everything and left the casting 5 minutes later. The girl was furious that they didn't let her show improvisation. The managers calmed her down and said that she had done everything she could. The girl wanted to clarify whether this drama will really have many celebrities and whether Moon Kai-hyun will be in the leading role. The next one to come out of the casting was Lim Ju. He had a happy face. It looked like everything was fine with him. The guy replied that it turned out that a member of the karting team had seen him on the show. A powerful side himself, and he recognized him. All the other actors understood that this was a good sign for him, and they also understood that he should succeed. Lim Ju looked at the guy and said that it was just a trifle. He could have won this casting anyway. Jae-hui looked at him and didn't answer. He understood that this was his main opponent. The casting director came out and said that it was Jae-hui's turn to come to the casting. One of the managers came up to him, tapped him on the shoulder, and told him to try his best. The guy decided that the main thing for him at the moment was that he not be nervous. When he entered the office and where the casting was taking place, he introduced himself. One of the members of the commission asked him if he had received his script excerpt. The guy answered yes. Then this member of the commission asked why he didn't bring his passage to the hall to read it here. The guy replied that he simply remembered everything. The members of the commission thought that they had handed out quite a lot of text, and this guy most likely decided to show off his intelligence. Then this member of the commission said that this was not necessary and he could look at the text, after which he said that they would start with the third episode from the 25th minute and began the dialogue that his character had at that moment, as if he had become the very character he imagined. He replied that he didn't think so and that his hero at the moment believed that his companion was not at all mercantile. The commission member was a little surprised, looked at the guy, said that next he wanted to hear the dialogue from the fourth episode, from the third minute, and asked to start the lines where he loses his temper. The guy, without thinking, began to speak loudly like an actor introducing his character so that his companion would watch her language. The members of the commission were pleasantly surprised because they saw that he got used to the role and loudly shouted that no one cared what family he was from. It seemed that in front of them stood not the aspiring actor, but the very character they wanted to see in this series. The guy continued to play his role, but Varya said that someone was trying to assert themselves on him. The girl sitting opposite opened her mouth. She felt goosebumps running through her body, so she said that in the first episode, this character has a dialogue about the pain of separation. She also said that at the peak of his emotions, he depicted a nervous tick with his eyes, thus expressing his psychological state. The guy replied that there was no exact description, and he decided to improvise a little. The girl said that it was just great when she wrote this script, and that's exactly how she imagined it. She also wanted to know when he managed to learn all the lines. The guy replied that a couple of days ago. The casting director said he only had one question. If his characters added lines and changed his description, he would correct the role. At that moment, the guy thought that most likely this was the decisive question, and he was very close to winning. He answered, of course. After which the casting director, without telling him a word whether he was taken on for this role or not, said that he was free. The committee members looked at his resume and wondered where such a good actor came from. Had he really debuted a long time ago and no one knew about him yet? The girl who wrote the script approached the director and asked him if he thought the same thing as she did. The director replied yes. She suggested remaking Samara and increasing the importance of Kim Do-hoon's character, making it so that a secondary character would be like the main one. The very next day, Jae-hui decided to meet another friend of his with whom he studied at the theater. His name was Lee Moon-sun. He was his colleague at the studio, and he was also not so successful. Moon-sun, when he saw the guy, the first thing he asked was how his casting was, to which he replied that, as always, nothing new. Then Moon-sun said that there were times when the two of them went posting together. Moon-sun interrupted his career not because he was a bad actor. If you take his skills, he was better than not only him, but even Song Moon-kai. In fact, he lacked another O grip and qualities of a real celebrity. In a few minutes, he had a glass of alcohol in his hand. He told Jae-hui that a regular job is very boring, and if he knew, he would have held on until the last guy told him not to get drunk But his friend drank one glass and poured himself another one. He said that he was looking at him, and for him it was a consolation, at least in the fact that he was able to treat him. His friend believed that patience and hard work will overcome everything. He saw how his friend tried year after year, and it seemed to him that everything would work out for him. Jae-hui thanked his friend for such words, although his friend said that these were just ordinary words of support and that they should drink. In reality, there are no easy paths in life, but the actor's path is like a path through a tunnel, through a very dark tunnel in which nothing can be seen. A friend asked how Moon Ke was doing. Dima was wondering if he was still the center of attention, to which the guy replied that, of course. The friendship considered their acquaintance ungrateful, since it was he who constantly told them that they needed to help each other out. And now that everything was going well for him, they had completely forgotten. Jae-hui read that they should forget about it, but his friend didn't think so. He said that the most vile ones get to the top and their friends are bastards. The guy didn't want to blame Song Moon Ke for his success, but he, like his friend, wondered why he had become like that. His friend was drunk, after which his friend opened a pack of cigarettes and offered him some, to which the guy replied that he had already quit. His friend asked again if he really went to the drama casting in his youth. He was interested in the result. The guy replied that it seemed like I was asking. Then a friend said that it was not bad at all, but asked who was in the main role. The guy answered Song Moon Ke. Then he added that it was their acquaintances who had the leading female role, Ye-ri, and in the second male role, Kim Kyongho. And in such a cast, the series would definitely collect a large box office. Then his habit turned sharply and said whether Song Moon Ke had really sent him to him, to which the guy replied that he wanted to meet without any intention. At that moment, he thought that if he were honest, he was fed up with the fact that Song Moon Ke was so popular and he was languishing in obscurity. Well, he also understood that this strange ability that he possessed could disappear at any moment. In his position, a person either takes what he gives or receives nothing. Little by little, he attracted the attention that Song Moon Kai enjoyed. At that moment, he received a message that he needed to come to the set tomorrow morning. At that moment, the guy thought that he had to go through all the auditions that were available to him. He wanted Song Moon Ke to experience what he had been experiencing for so many years. In the company where he worked, everything worked like clockwork, but in this situation, the gears went backwards. He was a debunked actor and his name wasn't even on the website. His work experience consisted of a couple of college internships, a couple of roles in crowd scenes and in the theater, as well as advertising. That is, he was nothing more than trash in this industry, but he understood that he needed to change everything. The next morning when he came to the company, everyone started saying that it was Jae-hui and looking at his side because many of them heard that he was chosen instead of Ju-won. In fact, he took the place of the sixth that never rusts named Lim Ju-won. The manager was very happy that the guy came. He handed him a cup of coffee and told him to take it, while everyone smiled at him. The manager hugged the guy and said that they should go to the break room because they had a lot to talk about. At that moment, the very same rival he had beaten at the casting arrived. His rival said that he heard that the guy passed the casting and he congratulated him. Despite the smile, he was clearly unhappy. After which, even after listening to Jae-hui to the end, the guy said that he had filming and needed to go as quickly as possible. Jae-hui believed that if he didn't have this ability, he could be in his place right now, and he tried not to show this envy. The manager told the guy to take a look at himself because he was not the same as when he met his opponent in the hallway. The video actually looked absolutely happy despite all this, and this made the manager very happy. The guy caught himself thinking that for some reason he really felt very good. He thought maybe he really understood something important about Lim Ju-won and Sun Moon Kai and why they were lucky. Unexpectedly for himself, he came to the conclusion that he finally understood the most important thing, that these two were the same as he was. The manager told him that the director decided to rewrite the script for him, and the author decided to rewrite the character for him. It seems they really liked him. When the guy heard this, he first laughed and thanked the director and the author for such trust. Loud screams began to be heard. The girl screamed that she was angry and that she didn't understand if they would completely remove her characters from the script. He turned and saw Sul-hai, who was furious, and two people were trying to calm her down. The guy turned away and thought that he better leave the situation and start preparing for the next casting. Well, unexpectedly for him, the same girl who was screaming loudly burst into the room and asked if she could talk to him. This time her voice was not so convincing and not so firm as she asked him to. He asked the director not to cut her role from the script because everyone said that he made a huge impression on the director. The guy turned his head and asked again what she said and who told her such nonsense. The girl replied that everyone was talking about it, that he had impressed the author and director so much that they were rewriting the scripts for him. Wis asked him to put in a good word for her. At that moment, the guy looked at her and thought that the past was constantly haunting him. That's why he said that she should understand that only the director and the scriptwriter can edit the script and he can't do anything about it. The guy always remembered that he once begged her to put in a good word for her so that he would be given at least some kind of leading role. So he answered her that he did not want to take on any responsibility. The girl was very surprised, looked at him, and accused him of the fact that the script would be rewritten. She told him was it really necessary to bother and learn the whole script by heart, since he had previously done the same as them. But this time, he decided to really stand out. The guy started to turn around and told her that she was hopeless, but she asked again what he said. Was it really hopeless? Then the guy told the girl that she prepares for every casting half-heartedly, and if her role is suddenly cut from the script, it means she didn't show herself well and can be replaced. After which he turned around, looked at her, and added that he thought she knew her place, but she had disappointed him greatly. When the guy approached the manager, he asked what Sol-hee wanted, judging by his expression, and she apparently asked him for a favor. She was clearly jealous of him. Ninel wanted to ask the guy what they were talking about, to which he replied that they were talking about the director. Then the manager said that the director's name was Moon Byung-chul, and he really needed to make sure he didn't screw up with this series. The director understood that if this series failed at the box office, he would have to work with weekend dramas or something worse. This director had low ratings for his series. The manager replied that this was not quite true. Directors worked under an open-ended contract. He explained that, for example, directors have the freedom to order rewrites, but this director is a bit impulsive, and that's why actors constantly complain about him. The manager explained that before the very start of filming, the script and 100 more times can undergo changes. Sometimes the actors' dialogues are cut because the director wants it that way or vice versa. According to the contract, it is not possible to reduce the number of episodes, but it is possible to cut the airtime of one of the actors. The director has conflicts with the leading actors on every project. However, this is a very talented director guy. Ask this director himself. Chose Song Moon Kai for this role. The manager answered that in fact the company has a decision on this. The guy thought that he knew such a talented director would never have chosen Song Moon Kai on his own, since everyone knows that he is an uncontrollable and arrogant actor. It is clear that the company wants to somehow compensate for the losses from previous projects and put him on the set of the drama knowing the character of Song Moon Kai. It remained to be seen how long he could endure working with such an impulsive, old-fashioned director. At that moment, the manager stood up and said that he still had a lot of work to do and said goodbye to the guy until the next meeting. After hearing all this information, Jae-hui decided that it was none of his business anyway, and he should continue preparing for the casting. Very soon, the first day of rehearsal arrived. Song Moon Kai was a little confused because he was not prepared for this rehearsal. Jae-hui watched him from the side and thought that judging by how nervous he was, he didn't prepare at all, even though he said that all melodramas are the same. Jae-hui, holding the system in his hand, said that he absorbed this scenario with amendments. The door of the Rezka opened, and the director entered the room where the rehearsal was supposed to take place. He asked everyone to gather. The director said that this was their first rehearsal, and first they needed to get to know each other. The director wanted each of those present to introduce themselves in turn and tell a little about themselves. The director also said that this time they have a rehearsal for episodes 1 through 4, and he thinks that they will stay until the evening. Songmoon Ke was the first to introduce himself, saying that he plays the main character. Then the girl introduced herself and said that her name was Ye-ri and that she enjoyed working with everyone. The third one introduced himself as Jae-hui. He said that he was an aspiring actor. He was chosen for the role of Kim Do-hoon. He understood that it was important for him to make a good impression. After which the director said that their rehearsal was starting, and he was reading the first scene of the first episode. It said that all the events take place in the spring of 2009. The main character is from a poor family. He has nothing to his credit except a strong character. And also, according to the script, he had a friend, the son of a congressman, and no matter how much he smoked, he got away with it. Both of these guys were in love with a classmate, and it was their first love. At that moment, there was a remark from the girl. She told the guys that she just wants them to make peace and be friends again, like before. After finishing school, the girl tried to reconcile her friends who had quarreled, but the main character said that this prevented him from seeing his friend as he was. Well, the main character got angry and started shouting that he was an outcast among them and didn't want that anymore. Even if he had a rich friend, they still lived in different dimensions. At that moment, Jae-hui thought that this was the main scene of the first episode. The moment came when his character would speak. However, something went wrong. The guy was a little disappointed because the director stopped the rehearsal. The director's face was clearly unhappy with what was happening at this rehearsal. Therefore, the director turned to the main character and told him to stop because he had to play this price again. I only hide my emotions. Moon Ke asked again if it was really necessary to hide emotions. The director answered yes. He plays too emotionally, and his character reveals something shameful in front of the girl he likes. The director wanted him to play more reservedly, to which the main character replied that he would try. In fact, it was difficult to act out the son where the main character complains about his financial situation, which is not as good as his friends. This scene is full of sadness and shame. He played the main character too emotionally. The character turned out to be angry and unrestrained. This was an indicator that he did not delve into the character's character and motivations. The rehearsal continued. His team included experienced actors for the most part, so everyone coped with the task. But there was one problem. One of the actors who played the second leading role told everyone to wait. At that rehearsal space, everyone turned their heads to look at him, and he shouted that they had forgotten. It was the actor Kim Kyongho, and he played the second main character in this situation. They forgot all about him. Many people said that he works as a model, and that he was probably chosen because of his popularity and his appearance. It seemed that he should have kept all the awards, but apart from his external beauty, he stood out from the other actors in little way. The director wasn't going to listen to anyone and said that they should move on to the next scene. The guy was a little surprised. What does next scene mean, and is it really finally his turn? It was Sun but 43, last Sun, first series hero, come to visit his friend, and they drink in his house. He sits on his haunches. The heroes are clearly nervous and look around in fear. Just at that moment, there is a knock on the door. When he opens the door, the main character of this series asks him if it is him, to which he replies that yes. The guy asks to be let in quickly because they really need to talk. There was something mysterious and intense in his eyes. He said that he had a very important matter. At that moment, Jae-hui put his hand on the script, and it seemed like he was reading it again. Moon Ke, playing the main character, noted that the script said that his character talks to him as if he is older. The guy kept saying that he had never spoken to him like that before, but he thought he was now, and that he thought he was too big for causing problems for everyone. The other actors were surprised how he doesn't read but speaks from memory. This isn't even from the first episode but from the second. And he's already learned the lines from the second episode, and how can he look like that without looking at the script? The guy continued to play his role, telling his friend that he should stop raising his eyebrows, that he still doesn't understand what all this is about, and that he thinks the team won't turn away from him after this. Moon Ke entered with a short speech. At first, he didn't understand. He asked what, and then added that it would be better to be careful here. Then the guy added that someone was following him, and these words made everyone nervous. After such a reaction, Jae-hui smiled. I said that I was mistaken, It was not from this series, and he asked for an apology. He simply spoke from memory. Moon Ke, when she heard about this, thought that even Jae White was making mistakes next time. He should improve learning the script. The director told them that they were all great. Even though the scene had been changed, they had all coped and offered them dinner at a restaurant for the entire team when they finished filming. The casting director came into the room where the rehearsal was taking place. He asked if they were finished and inquired how the actors had done. The director replied that Jae Hui is just a beast and doesn't know where he got such talent from. When Moon Ke heard these words, he thought that this was some kind of nonsense, because this was the first time he was praised for his acting skills. The director asked the producer if he didn't mind. He could talk to these two. When everyone else came out, Moon Ke attacked the guy. He started shouting, "Does he really think that if he went through one casting in his life and became cool, the director thought that you can just talk?" Jae Hui looked at Moon Ke and said why he blames him for the fact that he himself was very poorly prepared. Moon Ke asked the director to let him go. Moon Ke called the guy Christiusha, who only recently begged him to intercede for him and only passed one casting, and became insolent. That's why he didn't want to be on the same team with this unknown loser. When he heard about this, Jae Hui was very surprised. Since his friend had recently tasted success, he immediately began to look down on those who did not have it. Moon Ke told the director that he had deliberately told him different things and pretended to be mistaken. Then he continued to talk about how he was ashamed that they had this loser on their team and why he didn't forbid him to go to the casting. The guy turned around and thought that apparently for him he was a plague, as if being near me he could catch the infection of failure. And was that really the reason why he behaved like that? Jae Hui decided that he shouldn't continue this conversation any further and left. The guy, after some time, went down to the restaurant where the rest of the actors were and asked for forgiveness for being late. Jae Hui asked them to pass the tongs because they were learning how to grill meat, and the others wanted to see how he could grill meat. The door of the restaurant opened and Moon Ke walked in, followed by the director. The guys were glad that they had finally arrived. The actors started telling them to come over and not be shy about sitting at their table. Moon Ke passed by. He said that he would rather leave. He had stomach problems. The director was a little surprised by such words because it was he who invited all the actors to the restaurant. That's why the director said that the main character should sit opposite the director, and that's just disrespectful. The director got a little angry when he asked the other actors if he was always like this, because the topics hadn't even started yet, and he was already behaving so badly. Everyone sitting at this table knew how small their film industry was. The guy wished everyone a bon appetit. It was clear that the popular actor left and did not want to sit at the same table only because no one knew him. The unknown newcomer pushed him aside. The director did not understand why he went to the restaurant with them at all. After all, everything starts with such subtle, barely noticeable changes. Also sitting with them was the actress Oh Moran. She was an authoritative person in the company. She is a calm person, but everyone knows that she is demanding of her subordinates. So for the one who makes a good impression on her, everything will go like clockwork, and he managed to gain the trust of such an industry veteran. The director told his actors that they did a great job and then added that they should keep it up, after which they raised a glass of alcohol and drank it to celebrate their first day at work. They also invited the guy to drink with them and say the first toast at this table. He was lying on the bed trying with difficulty to open his eyes. He wasn't quite able to do it. Opening his eyes, it seemed to him that everything in this room was going around in circles. He could not clearly see a single object. Jae Hui lifted his head and realized that it hurt. Then he thought, is he crazy and how much did he drink? Then he began to look around with difficulty, and who would surprise him? When he realized that he was not in his dorm at all, it was not his room. At that moment, his mother came into the room and asked him if he was awake. The guy was a little surprised that he was in his mother's apartment. She said that he came back very late, and if it weren't for Moon's son, he would have been lying on the street and frozen. He remembered that yesterday he had a lot of fun and had a second drink with Moon's son, and his mother offered him some soup with sprouted chickpeas. When he heard such a proposal, he decided that it was time for him to get up. He lowered his legs and stood up. At home, it was the same as always. His parents, oddly enough, were still in debt, but they were always happy to see him. However, there were also unpleasant memories associated with this house. He recalled a conversation with his father, who hoped that he would not be left with nothing. When he came out, the first thing his mother asked him was how he was living with difficulties. She was also interested in why he never visited them. The guy replied that his business was going well. Mom looked at him and said that it was just wonderful. His mommy, even at her age, she was very beautiful thanks to her. He also came out with a good face. The guy grabbed the ear and tried the soup several times and told his mother that it was very tasty. His mother continued to say that she was glad to see him even when he was dragged home drunk. His mother also wanted him to visit them more often because she was ready to cook him delicious food. Mom suddenly said that it is really nice to have dinner together sometimes. If he had heard these words earlier, he would have thought that she was not speaking sincerely, because being an unknown actor, he did not want to show himself to them. The guy said that on September 18th at 10 p.m., there will be a premiere of a new series on the channel, and this drama is a train to youth. His mother asked him again what he was saying. Then the guy repeated once again that now she and her father would see his face on TV much more often. Mom was surprised and asked again if he really wanted to say. The guy then declared that he had finally passed the casting, and this time he definitely had a reason to be confident in himself. Suddenly his mother jumped up and shouted that she had the best son in the world and that they were ready to go to a restaurant that day. Then she thought for a bit and said that something else was needed now. She called her father and told him to come quickly. She wanted to tell him something important. She was very happy and puffed up that it finally happened, that her son was noticed. And he too had been waiting for this moment for a very long time, since he had taken the path of an actor. His mother watched the news and saw that this series was actually being filmed, and her son was also filming in this movie, and they were writing about him in the newspapers. The guy interrupted his mother and said that only one sentence was written there. Then his mother answered him that they should write about him everywhere. After which she called her friend and started telling her that her son was filming a TV series that would premiere on December 18th at 10 p.m. Jae-hui decided that he should leave his mother alone and he needed to do his own thing. He locked himself in his room and thought it was time for him to look at the script that General Manager Park had given him. In the evening at the restaurant, they got very drunk, and the manager staggered and gave him a folder with a script. Then he thanked him because it was not one script, but 3 of them. The first scene was called Artist from Manhwa. The second, Female Cry, is a new film that will be filmed this year, and also the script, The Bus Driver. The guy holding these 3 scenarios thought he should start with the bus driver. Imagine his surprise when he wanted to absorb this scenario. He failed. The tug system notifies him that he has reached maximum absorption, and he has the ability to rating films open. He did not understand what it was. He understood that these were unreleased films, and each of them occupied a certain percentage. He just didn't understand whether it was a rating or the degree of absorption. When he tried to read one of these scripts, he couldn't do it, and that meant there was a degree of absorption. Now all he had to do was figure it out completely to understand how to proceed further. So he took another script and pressed it with his thumb. The system told him that this scenario, Miracle in Prison, is 92 out of 100 possible. He tried another scenario based on The Film Lawyer, and it was 96 out of 100. Then he realized that The Miracle in Prison and The Lawyer are recognized treasures of Korean cinema, and their rating is more than 90. Sona Pro's unsuccessful debut, less than 1,500,000 views only, 45 out of 100 possible percent. He realized that he had another opportunity. He could determine the value of the script, and depending on this, he could determine the popularity of the film. He understood that the rating may not predict the future box office receipts of the film, but at least he can choose a better script for himself. So he decided to check out the very series for which he had passed the casting and in which he was going to star. This is A Train to Youth. He immediately saw on the board that this ability was not applicable to unfinished scenarios, which meant that this scenario had no rating. The guy thought, what kind of nonsense is this? Is it really impossible to scan a ready-made script with this ability? He then thought that it looked like The Train to Youth and most of the other TV series would not be a success. He looked one after another and saw how many points they took, because now he understood that this was very important. And he should not get involved with unsuccessful projects that can lead to nowhere. At that moment, the guy thought there was still a lot of script somewhere waiting for its time, and he just needed to wait. He had to make an effort, and then where it would pay off. The guy, after he returned to normal, went to the company to see the general manager. He came to him right after lunch. The main manager was either filming or free. When he saw him, he was very happy. The head manager said that it was very good that he came. There was good news for him. The guy asked again what the news was, after which the manager called back and said that Jae-hui had joined the company. Immediately after this, the door opened and another person entered the room and greeted him. The guy was very surprised and even a little confused. I don't understand what's going on. In fact, it was very unexpected for him, and he didn't even think that something like this could happen. The guy really didn't expect to see this man in front of him at that moment, so he didn't know what to tell him. He was, of course, very happy when he saw Jack Hin here, In turn, he was happy when he saw the guy he said that they had not seen each other for a long time. The director added that he congratulates them. They will now work together because he knows Jack well, and it is their tour manager. The guy asked again who the beautiful lady is. Then they introduced him to a girl who greeted him. It was Yun-mi, and she had come to them from another company. She would be his stylist. The manager said he had passed his schedule on to Jack, and now they could talk in private. Jae-hui asked Jack because he is most likely still busy, and he's a director, then he does not understand why he's performing the duties of a manager. Jack tried to explain that there are so few good managers at the moment, and they are paid very little for such hard work. And besides, all ideas about show business are being dispelled. He added that of course he is not complaining at all. He has not been involved in tour management for a long time, and he is nostalgic about this job. He thinks it will be fun. The guy thought that if such a cool manager as Jack would be with them on the set, it would be really cool, and Yun-mi was just wonderful. The girl looked at the guy and asked if he was really waiting for a handshake. In fact, it was very interesting there. Jack said that it would be better to find a more suitable place to talk about business, and so they did. When they found such a suitable place, Jack in the hall, all the command in his hands, he said so then, after which he stated, putting one script on 100, that these are technical specifications for the trailer, and this Saturday they have a shoot of the trailer and the cover of the Train to Youth. The girl added that she promised to the costume designers and put together a bow for each participant. The guy didn't even understand how they managed to do all this in 2 days. The girl said that his clothes should emphasize his professional affiliation because he is a journalist, so he will be dressed simply and modernly. Jae-hui didn't agree at all. Jack said that they hadn't started yet, but if things went wrong, he would quit. And then he added that this may sound like empty words, but seeing how he showed up for work every day and had forgotten the script, he was sure that he would succeed. Jae-hui laughed. He was very pleased to hear such words. He said that it was very touching, but at least it was true. Jack turned to the girl and said that if she saw when he learns dialogue, he becomes so ambitious, but also tries his best to hide it. The guy was very surprised because no one had told him that he was ambitious, but he was trying his best to hide it. He didn't think that it was a reproach. Ambitiousness is a very good thing. He wanted to know if he was as ambitious as before or not, and he needed to see how Jack would react to him. Jack was a little surprised that he asked him about it, but the guy said that he wanted to know what he thought about him at the moment. Jack smiled and thought for a bit and said that, well, actually, he was very surprised. After all, he couldn't even imagine how ambitious the guy could be, and then he asked again what else he wanted to hear. Jae-hui answered that in general, nothing. The stylist girl said that he already looks happy. All that's left for him to do is shine on stage. Jack answered her that he doesn't know him well, but he knows him inside out because he already said that he understands people. An argument started between the two of them. Each of them wanted to say that he knew the guy better, and it is unknown what they would have agreed on if it were not for Jae-hui. He told them to stop both of them because they were both actually right. And then he added that they are very funny, and despite the fact that they argue, they do it very sincerely. Jack said if they decided everything, then they could celebrate their friend's debut in a restaurant. The guy was for it. Then they asked Yun-mi, she wasn't against it either. When they entered the restaurant, the guy asked, how about bone broth soup? Jack and the girl said in one voice that they love it. In fact, these two have already done everything for him and everything is prepared. The filming of the trailer was scheduled for the day after tomorrow. He thought that he had no choice but to have fun. Nothing could stop him. When the day after tomorrow came, the guy came to the set very early. Jack was already there. Who asked him why he came so early, to which the guy replied that this was his first shoot. He got up early and could not fall asleep. Jack replied that he was here so early because he had been working for several days and that he had learned to love the fresh morning air. At that moment, he heard the girl's voice. She greeted him. Then the guy asked her if she had slept well. The girl looked at him and said that of course he was wondering if it was really just a couple of days ago that they got drunk to the point of fainting. The guy looked at her and it seemed to him that she was emitting some kind of energy. She was still an interesting, unique person for him. The guy thought that it was just morning again. I was going to start at 4 o'clock, but he needed to get ready for filming. After a while, he stood and looked at himself from the side. The girl said that he was ready. He had great makeup and his look was perfect. She was hanging around him, wanting to know what he thought about the clothes she picked out for him. The guy replied that they were gorgeous. At that moment, Jack suddenly said that Moon Kai and Kim Kyongho should feel threatened because Jae-hui could outshine anyone who was nearby. The girl said that this is exactly how it is, to which he replied that she has good taste. Then Jack said if they put the same thing on him, he would look like a scarecrow. The girl said that naturally. In just a few seconds, everything was ready, and Jae-hui was ready for this shoot. The guy looked at Yunmi and told her that she knows how to rub salt into the wound, and then he laughed. After making a few movements, the guy felt that he didn't feel the same in his usual clothes. He looked at his reflection and thought that he was sinking into the steering wheel with every breath. It seemed to him that he was becoming his character, and he also understood that something had happened that he had been waiting for a very long time and had never felt before. For the first time, he felt admiring glances from all sides, and he gained confidence. At that moment, he heard Jack call his boyfriend turned around because he didn't understand why he was needed. He asked Jack what was the matter. Why did he have that expression on his face? Jack smiled and said ambiguously that it was time because he was already ready for his first shoot. All they had to do was get to the place where his first shoot would take place, and he climbed into the car. On the way to his first shoot, he didn't even fall asleep in the car, which was very surprising. When Jae-hui was told that they had already arrived, he was very happy and looked out the car window. What he saw was indeed a very fitting place for the atmosphere of the series. He picked up his phone and saw that there were 20 minutes left before filming began. Jack asked him what he would do, wait in the car, to which the guy replied that he would go and say hello. Then Jack said that they would go together. It was his first shoot and he needed to make an impression. He really wanted to impress the director first and foremost, so he decided to approach him first. The guy came up and greeted the directors and everyone who was standing near him. The director replied that everything was fine and that Jae-hui had arrived at work early. The guy laughed and said that it happened that way. He was even a little embarrassed, but the director thought it was great. Then several assistants in the hall took him by the hand to his seat and said that he was just in time. These two pushed him and said that he should stand in that exact place. The guy was a little surprised. When he looked at the director and the manager, he saw that they were even a little surprised by his appearance, and the director said that he knew it. The director said he looked great, but he thought to himself that he was probably so motivated because he was about to be demoted. The guy was very surprised at that moment. Someone called the director, and it was Song-yoon and Kyongho. The girl smiled and greeted everyone, and Kano greeted Jae-hui. The director approached them, and you said that they were also great for arriving early for filming. Direct Creek now. If everyone has already gathered, then they should discuss the work plan over a cup of coffee. The director said that one of the cast members had not yet arrived, and so they could not start a conversation. The director was surprised who had not yet arrived and wanted to know who it was. No one wanted to tell him. One of his assistants said that this is the actor who plays the main character, and it is Song Moon-kai. The director was very upset. He asked again how much longer they had to wait. The assistant told the director that he would contact him immediately. The assistant also added that they would now look to see if he had already arrived, since he had called him and he had said that he would be there in 5 minutes. At that moment, the guy understood perfectly well that the director was not guilty of anything, and he was offended that all the blame was placed on him. Jack suddenly told everyone not to worry because the main character was just showing his character. He added that this is a signal to all of them, because now throughout the filming he will be causing problems for everyone around him. Therefore, all the actors had no choice but to go to their cars and eat in order to wait for one actor. Despite what Moon Ke has done now, he was not always like this. When he became popular and in demand, he learned bad things from his older colleagues. The guy asked Jack what he meant, then Jack said, "What do you think?" After all, he really seriously imagined himself a leader, because the classes only start at 9, and he wants the time to be moved to a time that is convenient for him. After all, with this behavior and his lateness, he is trying to pressure the film crew so that everyone dances to his tune. The guy didn't understand why he had to butt heads with the whole team, because in reality, they could have just come to an agreement. At that moment, Jack turned his head, looked at the guy and said that when Moon Ke was a newbie like him, he spoke exactly the same words as Jae-hui is speaking now, but apparently in this life something is not going according to the rules. Jack scratched his head and said that he needed to have a serious talk with Moon Ke. At that moment, Jack called and told Moon Ke that he was a stubborn ass and that he was allowing it on the very first shoot. The stylist girl came up to the guy and told him not to worry so much about Jack and about this shoot. Instead of scolding some assistant director who you don't even know personally, it's better to just say it all to Moon Ke's face. The girl said that in their industry, everyone smiles at each other and is polite, but in reality, conflicts constantly occur. Politics rules here. She was right. It was a pitiful sight. The administration, managers, actors, directors all hide the knife in their pockets, all wanted power. But the most important and most pitiful sight is that at that moment, his thoughts were interrupted by loud noises. The door of the car he was sitting in suddenly swung open and something started to happen on the set. Moon Ke ran in and started asking everyone for forgiveness. He said that his manager had made a wrong turn and asked where the director was. After some time, he stood in front of the director and tried to tell him something, but it was in front of everyone. The guy asked the stylist what he was doing. She told him that he was playing to the crowd. Then the guy said, "Does he really think that this could somehow work?" She told him that of course it would work. Everything that happened looked like the main actor was just late. Well, who could punish him for that? At that moment, Si Hui thought that most likely he had contacted the wrong person, because Song Moon Kyo was, after all, imposed on the director by the company. He was not his favorite. This director was known for his demanding nature towards the actors, which is why they constantly argued with him. In fact, he was not some soft director who would let an actor get away with an outright prank in the industry. He was considered an incredibly scandalous person. The controversial director who brandished a knife called art. He had pride and inflexibility. He never compromised. The guy turned his head and looked at all that price and said he didn't think it would work for Moon Ke. But unexpectedly for everyone, the director shook the hand of the actor who played the main character and who was late. The director smiled and said, "Well, guys, now they have no one to wait for and so they can start filming." Jae Hui was surprised. After all, their main character deigned to come and was treated exactly like the actor who played the main role. The director hurried everyone because he needed to start filming before the sun rose. And the director also said that they don't want to waste their great actor's time at all, meaning the actor who was delayed. Moon Ke, when he heard these words, was very surprised because no one had spoken to him like that in a long time. He asked again what he meant. Then the director looked at him again and said, "Can't he hear him because he was late, so they need to start filming?" The actor turned his head again and said that he should be forgiven for being late, but his manager turned the wrong way. Unexpectedly, he heard the answer that then his manager should use the navigator. Everyone laughed. Go-sun, who didn't find it funny at that moment, it was Moon Ke because he was ready to fall into the ground in shame. The girl, trying to hold back her laughter, couldn't do this either and started laughing so loudly that everyone looked at her. Then she said that this director really has a fiery character and they say that it is better to leave. This is a fight. The guy told her that he understood her and next time she should bring popcorn to watch such shows. A teaser is something like an appetizer before the main course. Its purpose is to whet the appetite. The trailer is entertaining in nature. It is intended to arouse interest, but usually has nothing to do with the plot. They started filming their trailer in just a few seconds. Everything was very unusual and incomprehensible. She didn't say anything about what would happen in this movie, but the main actors were in it. And at the end, there was a wonderful filming of the actors where it was said that this is a series of A Train to Youth. When all the actors were filmed, the last one to be filmed was the main character of this series. The director watched and said that the melodrama Train to Youth is trending and this video is the second most rated. The audience reaction is very positive. Some said that the film was well invested in, no cheap special effects. The cast is simply golden. Jack hugged the guy and told them to just look at their young talent because he was the crowd's favorite. The guy was a little shy because he only appeared in the background for a second and was barely visible, to which he was told that there was no need to be modest because he had drawn all the attention to himself. And in addition to the teaser, they also showed how many queries he had in the search engine. Of course, 18th place was far from first place, but it was still a breakthrough. When the guy saw this, he was very surprised by what they were writing about him on the internet, and it was really cool. He immediately thought that he already had comments. Attention and popularity came true. Everything he had dreamed of for so long, he stood before a devilish temptation that it seemed he could not refuse. Jack shouted that the audience reaction was just great, and the competing series in this part of the broadcast were pretty mediocre, so we can expect a good result. The director said that if they work at this rate, they will get at least 10% of views. Jack hugged the guy and said that he tried very hard at that moment. They heard the voice of the main actor who said that he would not watch this shit. The director approached him and asked what was wrong and why he was responding like that, because he just wanted to show him how good he looked at the shooting range. Monkey turned his head and said that he didn't want to watch and screw it all because it was all snot and sugar and he was already sick. He said that this was an ordinary pathetic sight. The director did not understand what kind of statement this was and why he was behaving like this. No one present on the set understood what was wrong with the actor, because he was so crazy it was unbearable to say a word to him. Jack exhaled. I don't understand at all what's going on and why the situation on the set is like this. At that moment, the director shouted that everything was filmed. He didn't like something. He said that one more take was needed, after which the director turned to the main character and asked him what the mood was, because they had to finish everything before lunch, and then take a photo for the cover. He reminded them that they needed to hurry because this was a tourist spot, and if they delayed filming, crowds of children would come for an excursion. The director shouted that it was filmed, but he wanted to do it again. Everyone started whispering that it turned out well after all, why the director didn't like it. The director thought that they lacked discipline. He didn't know how others worked, but when they were filming his projects, no one could even think of walking around with their noses in the air. The assistant director came up and said that their filming permit would soon expire and that he might want to loosen his grip a little. I did another take. The director was not happy with the performance of the main actor. He said that he needed more expression. It was clear that when the main actor and director were in conflict, the whole film crew suffered more. No one understood why Moon Ke needed to anger the director. After all, the head manager explained that you can't mess around with this director, and the main actor ignored it. Now all this is happening only to find out who is the boss here. Some people thought that it was his fault if the actor was late during the first shoot with the director. What respect could there be for him? Now it was clear that he would still drink blood, and the filming of the series had not even begun yet. What would the director do with him? Well, others thought that he wasn't so stupid as not to understand what he was doing. Moon Ke wondered if he was really freaking out just because the director scolded him. In fact, it didn't look like that. Even though he is the actor, the main role, he is not so stupid as to ruin his career. Jack said that actually this is not the only reason. Then the young man asked again, what else? The guy turned and looked at Jae-hui. He didn't even say anything. Another assistant who heard this conversation also turned around and asked again what they were talking about. Well, they all said only one thing, that the reason why the actor who plays the main role behaves like that is because Jae-hui was invited to this film. When this reason became known to almost everyone, everyone wanted to know what Jae-hui had to do with it. Jae-hui heard the director's voice saying that everything was filmed and he liked everything. He also praised the guy for having such a sad look as if he was thinking about the past. He was pleased that he was praised. He was also told that he managed to depict with just one look these feelings of regret for a happy youth and sadness at the loss of friends. The director said that the guy really brings this whole series to life, and he was very pleased with it. He understood that his character was created personally by the director. That's why he was so attached to this character. Compliments to certain actors usually irritate the situation and can be very irritating, as in this situation, to the actor playing the main role. Moon Ke approached the guy and said that he was probably so happy that he sang with his colleagues. All this was because harmony gets in the way of the leading actor, and this is a completely different matter. Moon Ke was furious that all the praise and all the words were addressed to his mind, not in his direction at all. Jae-hui answered him, if he can't get along even with what he considers a low-class team at that moment. Moon Ke stopped controlling himself. Since he didn't want to hear that he should stop making a stupid scandal to everyone around him, he was told that he should only do his job, and that's it. Jae-hui reminded him that with his sharpened frames, he only causes trouble to everyone around him. Moon Ke couldn't take criticism from anyone, so his hands clenched into fists, and he was ready to pounce on his interlocutor. And he did it. He started insulting him, calling him a rat and then insulting him with obscene language. The director could not contain his indignation. He shouted that swearing in the presence of the director and the entire film crew was simply unacceptable. The rest of the workers from the Yumo group did not understand what was happening to the actor playing the main role. In fact, it did not get on film because he was asked to control himself. Jae-hui understood that no matter how hard the general manager tried, this incident would still remain a stain on Moon Ke's reputation. He understood if he would not openly enter into conflict and would simply annoy him only because he played well. Then in the end, he himself will sink his ship, which at that time will already be without a helmsman and crew. Jae-hui understood that his opponent could be left completely alone at that moment. The chief manager turned to Moon Ke, trying to calm him down so that he would at least try to be a little more restrained. Moon Ke turned his head and looked at the general manager and said that he had already calmed down. The general manager also thought that if this is so, then it is good, and Moon Ke told them that they are fussy people. After which Moon Ke turned and addressed Mr. Director, who was a little surprised. The actor asked the director for forgiveness for being a little unrestrained, but he really doesn't understand this script. The director answered him that his explanations were not enough. There were explanations about the acting in the script. Then the actor replied that he does so because it is written there that his character feels unbearable rage. He did not understand what else they wanted from him. The director unfolded the script explanations and told him to look at the explanations he left carefully because he was looking and saw nothing. The director said that before his character is about to become enraged, he remembers his strong friendship with his friend. The director was even more angry. He said that he didn't understand what he was doing and was behaving like some kind of maniac in a fit of rage, because his rage certainly wasn't from some kind of lofty feelings. The actor tried to justify himself to the director and said that he thought he was being too demanding of him. The director tried to explain to him that the whole drama revolves around his character, and that this character Vul is not at all impulsive. This person is reserved, but he is filled with rage, and his character can barely contain himself. You can see it in his eyes. The actor grabbed his head and told the director that this is exactly what should have been written in the explanations. The director answered him that Shams doesn't believe them, that the actor made him guilty of everything. The actor didn't take the trouble to delve into the character's nature and blamed the director. These words enraged the directors. He shouted that it was the actor's duty to know all this, and did he really need to be taught acting again and have everything explained to him? The assistant director asked the manager if he could intervene and calm them down, and said that he would calm them down himself. Jae-hui watched all this from the side. His son watched as the assistant director became very upset. He turned his head and saw the girl who was his costume designer. She was eating popcorn and saying that it was cool. She thought it was as cool as watching debates. Jae-hui thought that she really did bring popcorn, and for her it became a certain kind of entertainment. The director continued his showdown with Moon Ke. He couldn't calm down because the actor played so badly. The director yelled at him. Does he at least understand how much time they lost because of him? And most likely Moon Ke thought that in melodramas, you can slack off and play carelessly. The director called the assistant director, and he looked around wanting to see him. The director told the assistant to tell the actor Moon Ke that he sat down and relearned the script and to bring the next actor because they had to skip this scene and move on. The director also shouted to the camera assistants to change the scenery and move as quickly as possible. Moon Ke had no choice but to turn around and leave the set. They weren't going to film him at the moment. The guy's makeup artist thought that at that moment, there was a tense and explosive atmosphere on the set. The assistant approached the guy and told him to forgive him, but he would have to be the first to film, and he asked about his readiness. After which he asked again if Jae-hui was ready, and then he went up to the girl and asked her if she was ready too, which she replied yes. In this scene, he had to act with an actress 3 years younger than him. Her name was Park Chung-ga. It was her third project. And the characters in the script have been in a relationship since high school, so they will see each other every day on the set. And from the very first moment, they decided that they were ready to communicate with each other informally. The girl did some exercises. She trained her voice this way before filming. The guy thought that luckily she made a good impression. He thought that they would be able to understand each other. The director approached them. I said that he was asking for forgiveness, that their turn came early. The guy said that it was okay. Then the director lowered his eyes. He wanted them to rehearse the scene for his son that they would be filming now. He needed to understand on some page. Jae-hui replied to him, didn't think that it was page 32, scene 12, episode 1. The director thanked him and laughed. This is a scene about a young couple calmly dreaming about their future together. The guy thought that in this scene there would be a camera on a dolly, so he had to do something else. He turned to Cheong-ga. She raised her head and looked at him with her huge green eyes. Then the guy looked at her and asked if he could take her hand and extended his hand to her. The girl was a little surprised, but she couldn't resist, and so she decided that she was ready to answer him. She told him, of course, and extended her hand, placing it on his hand. The director, when he saw this scene before they were filming, smiled because he liked the atmosphere. The guy immediately felt that his partner would play perfectly. She spoke in a relaxed, thoughtful, carefree manner, drawing out her words. Everything was as it was written in the script. The director, seeing them, said that it was just great and what he needed. After which, the assistant director shouted that if everyone was ready, then they would now film this scene. The director put the headphones on his head and shouted for everyone to get ready. At that moment, he was very concentrated. When they shouted that they had started and filming began, it was as if Jae-hui and his partner had known each other for a long time. They were happy on the screen. The director calmed down and said that they had to film this scene again. The assistant hurried to call the actor. At this moment, the general manager was talking to Moon Ke, asking him if he couldn't play, to which the actor replied that he had already repeated several times that he simply did not want to play in melodramas. The head manager tried to explain to him that he had clearly told him that even before the work had started, that this director had a reputation as a very demanding person, and he asked him to control himself. To which the actor replied that he also said that he didn't want to play in melodramas anymore. Then the head manager asked him if he really thought he was in a position where he could choose what he likes and what he doesn't. He asked the actor to tell him directly, Or how being 10-20 minutes late for filming is one thing, but freaking out and swearing in the presence of the director is something completely different. The general manager also said that the actor has another very big problem, which concerned attacks of pride because of Jae-hui. When the actor heard about pride, he said that he had never had anything like that and could never have, because he thought that this actor, who was he anyway, and there was nothing special about him. He also said that Jae-hui can grimace as much as he wants, but he will still play the main role. After which the actor turned around and abruptly left. The assistant director turned to him because in fact the chief manager had not finished yet. The assistant ran after the actor telling him to stop because the head manager didn't want to offend him. The manager asked the head manager if this circus would continue, to which he replied that of course it would continue, since he was put in this role. In order to somehow recoup the losses from previous unsuccessful roles, only he was sure that this time nothing would work out either. The hero, played by Jae-hui according to the script, is a positive person during his studies at the university. He communicated well with everyone, but his warmest relationship was with a girl named Lee Young-ha. From the third time with this girl, his hero did not experience the same tremulous magical feelings that they had before. But despite all this, she was always there for him and he always knew what she would do. After all, this was his first and only love, and her name was Lee Jung-ha. This couple was not the main one in this melodrama, but it is very necessary to support the genre, the director shouted well. This son was filmed as it should have been. The camera was stopped exactly as it should have been, and the emotional plot that the director wrote was fully executed. The director of Aftermath said that this is what we need. This is exactly how he imagined this scene. He also added that watching what was filmed, the skill does not go away, and he has a certain sense for the selection of actors. At that moment, a guy came up to the director and asked if his son's filming had finished and if he could go and say hello to his boss. The director answered him that of course he could go and he didn't need to ask. He thought that the young man was sleeping well. The guy understood that Moon Kei's ship had already been holed and was already sinking. If he wanted to take matters into his own hands, this was his only chance. The head manager got very angry, so he started shouting. The more he got angry at Moon Kei, the establishment, because he probably forgot his place, and he became arrogant. At that moment, a guy came up and turned to the head manager, who, without turning his head from the video, looked at him. The guy greeted him and asked if he had come to check how things were going on the set. The main thing is that the manager came closer to him, put his hand on his shoulder, said that everyone only says good things about him. Even Mrs. O'Meara complains that he has so little son. The manager kept his hand on his shoulder and he said that he was just glad that he finally saw how talented he was. He also asked the guy not to worry about Moon Kei. He needs to do his job and he needs to be a good boy. After which the manager turned his head and said that he needed to check his watch with the director and told the young man to try harder. At that moment, Jack hugged him and said that at least there were no complaints about him. Then he lowered it to his head and repeated once again that because of him he didn't have to worry at all. He also said that thanks to him he had no problems at all on the set and thanked the guy again for that. Jae-hui said that he already starts with being proud, but all this is not so. He is just starting his path because it was not so simple. In this situation, he behaved like a well-mannered newbie performer, but there were hidden ambitions in his eyes. He thought that he only needed 1 year. In just 1 year, he was bound to become a star no matter what you become. So he had to behave in such a way that everyone would treat him well. The very next day, the director said that the atmosphere on the set in the last days had been good. All this was only because they made a spell for good luck. That's why it became so quiet. They hoped that everything would continue like this. Ever since the general manager dropped by to see them on set, everything has been going swimmingly. Everyone thought that the CEO, the general manager, and the administration put pressure on Moon Kei, and that's why he kept quiet. The guy's makeup artist ate her popcorn silently. Her face was indifferent as nothing was happening. And she thought that the last few days with bags were just boring, and she was not interested at all. She said she bought 2 whole tubs of popcorn, but it was a waste of money. At that moment, Jack came up and told her not to jinx it with her lamentations. They turned their heads and saw that even Moon Kei was trying very hard lately. Jack said that this is the ideal shoot when it is quiet, peaceful, and calm. The guy said that they have just started. Jack also said that at noon he would have an interview even again filming, and hurried to do his job. Jae-hui turned his head and looked at his main rival. He was very surprised. He watched his every move and believed that he knew how to restrain his aggression when he wanted to. Apparently, the conversation with the boss had a very strong influence on him, so lately he hasn't freaked out or shouted on the set. The guy thought that, for now, he shouldn't stand out too much either, since he did everything he could. Jack's phone rang. He picked it up and called the guy the head manager wanted to talk to. Jack said that it looked like they would have to spend a little more time together that day. Enter alone. With the assistant began to hand out to the actors so that they could put autographs on posters. They will select 50 viewers who will receive posters with their autographs. The teaser caused a very strong reaction that no one expected, and the press conference was extended. And the actors were supposed to appear on television in entertainment programs. Of course, the actors complained that they had no free time at all, but they still enjoyed it very much. When Jae-hui left his first autograph, he didn't feel any fatigue at all. He was happy. The director came up and said that it was time for them to finish signing autographs. The actors were in complete agreement, after which the director said that it was necessary to set up the camera and let the journalists in because the reference should begin. Also, everyone was surprised that Pak Sol came to this press conference. No one even expected it. After waiting a few more minutes, the director said it was time to start this press conference. This was his first interview about filming that he gave. He really liked it. One of the journalists stood up and pulled out a recording device and said that he had one question for Jae-hui. The guy was a little surprised, but then he pulled himself together and said that he was listening, and he brought the microphone up to answer this question. This journalist asked the guy that he heard that the director rewrote the script after the casting he participated in. The guy replied that he really made a good impression on Mr. Director, but he believes the main reason is the desire to improve the plot. After which he said that he wanted to express his gratitude to the director and the scriptwriter. After this press conference, articles about the melodrama in which they starred began to multiply like mushrooms after rain. The main plot was supposed to revolve around the main characters, but his face also shone quite often in it. He was described as a very handsome actor, as if he had come straight out of a romantic manhwa, and it seemed like the director had put his whole soul into this series. The guy understood that they had written much more articles than he had expected. The press conference was over. The chairs were taken to the utility room. The administrator said that the actors had done a great job and could leave. At that moment, when he was reading one of the articles about himself, he was stopped by the actress who was playing with him. She said that they were discussing the idea of getting the whole cast together and going somewhere. The guy asked again, only actors, but what about directors? The girl replied that the director said that he couldn't. He needed to meet with the author and work on the script. Jack this Mamin told the guy that he was going home before that. The guy turned around and asked Jack if he could go with his colleagues. Jack looked at him ambiguously. The actors who invited him were standing in anticipation because they all wanted to hang out together. Jack looked at them and said that he allows them, but they must be very careful with the drink they promised him. Jae-hui looked at them and asked if they heard, to which they said of course. The girl was very happy because she wanted to take a break from this long day of filming. She shouted hooray and told everyone else that they needed to go and get drunk as soon as possible. Jae-hui thought that he wouldn't regret it. When the guy got into this restaurant after a while, he turned his head, looked around, and thought that this was something. The man greeted him at the entrance and asked who he had reserved the table for. He replied that it was for Ye-ri. Only after that he was allowed to go to that part of the hall. The guy thanked this man. When the girl saw him with the other actors, she said that he came to this restaurant quickly. They were a little surprised that he quickly found this restaurant, because from the outside, it didn't look like a restaurant at all. The guy said that he found it quickly, but at first he also thought that it was just some building. He asked again if others wouldn't come. All the other actors sitting at the table began to answer something incoherently, because they didn't want to offend him. Then the guy told them to forgive him because they were worried that Moon Ke wouldn't come because of him. He told them that they probably didn't like seeing conflicts on the set. One of the actresses said that it is difficult to avoid conflicts because all people are different. She believed that there were disagreements between them too, but then they made peace, and she hoped that they could make peace too. The guy added that Moon Ke has a very difficult character, which is why he acts this way. Well, in fact, he was even a little grateful that he was ruining his own rehearsal. The guy said that Moon Ke sometimes behaves a little immaturely. After all, he was used to everyone around him doing only what he wanted without compromise, and most likely he didn't expect that Jae-hui would get this role because he didn't like him. The guy also said that he doesn't want to talk about this person behind their back. He asked them for forgiveness because he thought that they probably felt uncomfortable. One of the actresses said that she didn't even know that everything was so bad, to which the guy said that no, it was because of him, that they had such a difficult shoot and he would try not to cause any more conflicts. The actress thanked him for taking care of them, but it was time for them to finish and asked what they would like to drink. One of the actors said he would like juice. Someone else said that anything but that, and in that case he would be a somic, but the guy said that beer would do for him. Kyungho could barely speak after a while. He thought he knew how to drink, but there was something wrong with him. After which he fell and everyone wanted to know what happened to him because he had only drunk a little. Kyungho said that he usually drinks a bottle of soju easily, but in reality, he should have been drinking much more carefully. At that moment, Kyungho told Jae-hui that he envied him because he had already served in the army, but he still had to, and he was afraid. He said that his genes say that he will be nothing but trouble in the army, and he would like to be a cool soldier, but he is afraid that he will not succeed. Kyungho thought that there was impenetrable darkness ahead of him, and he didn't know what to do. Jae-hui told him to take his hands away from his face, then there wouldn't be impenetrable darkness. Jae-hui understood that he was very pleased to sit at the same table and see these actors like this. After all, even Kyungho was a pretty famous model, but in this situation, you are very much in a mess. And even this famous idol that everyone knows by name, they were all just normal people. And most importantly, they all just wanted to communicate with others, and in general, they were just ordinary 20-year-old boys and girls. The guy suddenly asked Yeri if she became an actress because the record company sent her there. The girl replied that no, she asked because she really wanted to work in the film industry. Her position in the group was rather precarious, and she decided that it was time for her to act independently. The guy understood perfectly well that she left music in order to survive. After all, he didn't want to criticize her at all. She was a good actress and worked tirelessly, and besides, he understood her completely. Jae-hui asked her again that he understood everything about her. Now he was interested in how Kyungho ended up in the film industry. He replied that the company told him that his face was too beautiful, and it was a pity for it to be wasted in the modeling business. They suggested that he take up acting. He said that he was not an actor and he ruined everything. The director thinks that he looks better statically, after which he asked Jae-hui to teach him acting skills. The guy didn't understand why he turned to him. Then Kyungho answered him that he was studying here so that it bounces off the teeth, and that's why he doesn't get any bad takes. Everyone sitting at this table believed that this was the reason why Jae-hi was the director's favorite. And they also envied him how he could remember so well. The guy asked again how they knew about it and heard the answer that the company employees say so. They said that they were curious and they asked, but the assistant said that they had never seen him memorize a script while driving. Kyungho asked him again, although he always memorizes it by heart, but still this price is always with him. One of the actresses said that, by the way, she also never saw him ever look at this script. Then another one supported them and said that they definitely now understand that something is not right here. If he doesn't look at the script in the car, then when does he study it? At that moment, they all turned and looked in his direction. The guy felt quite awkward. After all, they sat and said that they don't know how he does it, but he's clearly hiding something from them, and they want to know what it is. The guy suddenly began to answer that he didn't understand what they were talking about and what else he could be hiding from them. At that moment, one of the actresses looked thoughtful, and the second asked if she had remembered anything. Then the actress said that she raised everything because, in fact, he is not as simple as it seems at first glance. Then she looked at him, pointed her finger, and screamed, "He's actually an ordinary genius." She came to the conclusion that he memorized the script from the first reading. At that moment, the guy sighed with relief. It seemed she hadn't guessed anything. And the second actress laughed and said that he probably studied the script diligently at home, to which the first one objected. They agreed on one thing, that he really is some kind of smart guy, but they wanted to know where he studied, at the Korean National University or at Harvard. One of the actresses said that it was a very boring topic and suggested that they say a toast. The second one was a little upset because she was not allowed to play detectives. The guy said that talking in a restaurant at work is so-so activities. He also added that he was quite happy with Din's reputation as someone who could do everything effortlessly. Then the girl said that she had guessed correctly and pretended that she didn't know it. After which they raised their glasses and decided to drink to them as the evening began to come to an end. One of the actresses said that they overdid it with drinking. The second noted that it was nothing. Kyungho couldn't come to his senses. He was thinking only about one thing, that the guy didn't notice him. Jae-hui thought it was a relief that the evening wasn't ruined, but it was a lesson for him to be more careful. The director who staged this melodrama had a motto that not everyone knew about. This consisted of the fact that first they filmed the first 4 episodes and only then the first one premiered. It was quite difficult on the set, but everything depended on the director, his style of work, and the project. All directors work differently. Jae-hui thought that Jack and his costume designer were having a hard time with him. After all, they had been working since early morning without breaks. They had to create the perfect image for him. Jack thought it was their job to look after him and didn't see any problem with it, and honestly thought they were doing great compared to Munkei's staff. It's much harder for them not only because of the hard work, but also because of his antics. Jack told the guy to never become like that here, to which he replied that if he becomes like that, it will be a disaster. Since from the very beginning, there were delays due to violation of discipline and they had to catch up with Korea to meet the deadline. The employees said that they do not know how much longer they can endure during the filming process. There were also complaints from the actors and employees of the company. This pace of filming brought the actresses to tears. They had no choice but to drink coffee and continue working. Well, for him, the word shot meant that they were moving on to the next scene and nothing more, because he walked home for a very long time and didn't understand why they couldn't do ordinary work. He stood waiting from one episode to the next for when he would go on set. When the assistant shouted that the actor Do Jae-hui, he raised his eyes and looked to see what they would tell him. Then the assistant said that he was being asked to go to the set, and it seemed to him that these were the best words he had ever heard. In fact, for him, it was a moment of glory and it was an opportunity to prove himself. He worked with pleasure all the time. And finally, December 8th arrived. It was Monday, which meant the moment of the series premiere was approaching. He didn't know where to turn from delight. This time, not only the actors but also the director gathered together when he raised his glass. The director said that they had all worked hard and now they could drink and have fun. One of the actors asked the director if this meant that he didn't have to go to filming tomorrow. The director replied that he did. Then they didn't understand how MPC would work if there was filming tomorrow, to which they heard the answer that they shouldn't worry about how they would finish filming and they would be able to drink as much as they wanted. The director asked the guy how he found the filming because it was almost his debut and his parents were probably proud of him. The guy said that not only his parents but also all his friends are now glued to their TVs and waiting for the premiere. The director said that apparently my mother will be the most active of their viewers. At that moment, one of the assistants stood up and said loudly, "Attention!" He wanted everyone to hear him. After which the TV was turned on, and this was the moment when the first episode of the melodrama they were leaking began to be shown on the screen. One of the actresses was so happy about the X series being released that she even jumped. The guy looked at the screen and thought that the beginning of the series was really good, and they also chose a soundtrack that was suitable for this series. At that moment, someone behind him said that our actor guy turned his head. This man came up to him and congratulated him on his debut. The guy thanked him for the congratulations. He couldn't take his eyes off of her as his son was immediately after entering, and it was important to see her. Jae-hui watched without taking his eyes off because he had never seen himself on the screen before. He sat and watched because it was his first viewing, and he had to be very attentive. He watched not only how he played, but he watched from behind, K.E. who played the main character, and also for the actress who played So-yun, because it was already VDS that was not in her eyes. There were tears. The director opened his notebook, picked up a pen, and carefully watching what he saw on the screen, began to write something. The girl in the suit said that in the scene, the actor's hand was unbuttoned and next time they need to be more careful. The guy looked at himself on the screen, and as he played, it seemed to him that it was very good. After all, for him, it was not just a role, it was his brainchild and it was his life. He sat all tensely squeezing his hand and his leg. He must not miss a single second. The moment has come when he reaches out to take his girlfriend's hand. There was a complete tension at the table. It seemed as if each of the actors were once again living this role together with their characters. At that moment, it was announced that the next episode would be shown on Monday at 10 p.m. At this point, Jae-hui couldn't hold back and shouted that it was just really cool. He thought that the editor did a very good job on the set. It was not noticeable how great everything turned out. The guy also understood that this series turned out to be quite good, not only because they were brilliant actors, but also because he himself starred in this series. After all the best aspects of their skill are highlighted. All the shortcomings are smoothed out by editing. The guy turned to the director. He wanted him to look at the trends, rather. Jack turned to the guy and said that if everything goes like this, it will be really cool. Everyone wanted to know how many comments there were. Indeed, his rating grew very quickly. And if everything continues like this, he can count on second place in the trend. When Jae-hui woke up, the first thing he did was scratch his head. It seemed like something was wrong with it. His head was hurting really badly and his vision was spinning. He realized that he shouldn't have drunk so much. After all, yesterday he was too imbued with the general jubilation. He shouldn't have followed the director's example. Then his makeup artist and his head manager came and they had another fifth drink. He stood holding onto the handrail and promised himself that he would never touch alcohol again. Opening the door to the set, he loudly said good morning to the head manager. After which the guy asked him how he was feeling, and he got to the main manager's house and raised his head with difficulty. He replied that everything was fine, and he got home, but he didn't look that good. In this room, There was another actor, Moon Ke, who turned his head and looked at him. The guy understood that the entire film crew was out of action because they had drunk too much the day before. At that moment, Yoonmi appeared, with whom he also greeted, after which they decided that they needed to go together. The girl approached the manager and asked what was wrong with him, because without her they poured him a sixth or something. He replied that it was better to take him out because he wanted to throw up. At that moment, Jae-hui, watching what was happening, thought that she was really an incredible girl. Then everyone gathered in one room. The head manager said that he would not hide anything and would say it straight out. He announced that this week their melodrama train to youth had seriously lost ground and was asking for a rating on 3 major channels. He announced that the series Love Online holds first place with 9.2%. When the guy heard about this, he raised his head, looked at the table, and thought that this was very unexpected for him. The head manager said that, however, this result did not come as a surprise to their company. The series Love Online is already being shown for the second time, so they expect their rating to fall next week. In fact, they have much more serious competition ahead of them, and this series of Beautiful Love premiered on the same day as their series. The guy thought it was not very good that the series Beautiful Love had made a lot of noise even before its premiere because the superstar Hwang Ji-ae had been chosen for the main role. Well, he was also surprised that despite all this series, which was their competitor, only scored 8.7%. It was a pretty low score considering the size of the star they cast in the lead role. The guy understood that if he played correctly, then they would serve their cards and he could count on first place. The head manager said that given the reaction of the audience and the fact that this is their first time on air, they have a good chance of getting even. Unexpectedly for everyone, Moon Ke said that it was simply impossible and they would never be able to do it. He believed that the director didn't know what he was doing, so the film would never be a success. He believed that the series would fail. I told the general manager that there is no need to talk about ratings. This is the job of the production team. Their task is to keep the acting skills up to par. Moon Ke did not continue this topic. He stood up and said that it was time for him to go to filming. The chief manager at this point noticed that it seemed like the tension was building up again. Jae-hui, hearing everything that happened, understood that this was his finest hour and he should not simplify this moment. The tension really did arise because there were 2 actors on the same set, one of whom was jealous of the other. Jae-hui saw all this from Moon Ke's behavior. He wanted to show with all his might how brilliant an actor he is. The head manager turned to the guy and asked why he was standing there. Didn't he have to go to filming? The guy replied that there was no filming with him. The manager asked again, so why didn't he go home? The guy pointed at the many cheeses that were lying on the manager's table. There were indeed a lot of new scripts that the guy hadn't read yet, but the manager hadn't read them either. The manager turned and looked at the script that was behind him. I asked the actor again if he really wanted to take all these scripts again and read them, to which he replied that he needed them all. The manager said that he had never met anyone in his career who took his work so seriously. So what did the guy say? The ones he gave him were already about what? The manager asked again if these were really the scripts he had given him a few days ago. And was he really able to read them all in such a short time? The guy answered that yes, but none of the roles appealed to him. The manager couldn't calm down. He asked again if he was really joking and he really could read all these scripts from cover to cover. The guy didn't answer, but he knew that everyone was loaded into his brain like a computer. The manager showed him the script and said that the role of Peng he was perfect for him. He remembered that the female scream only scored 58 points, and it was the worst of the 3 scenarios. So the guy said that the role is of course significant, but he sees this character as somewhat pathetic. And to be honest, the target audience of this genre is a bit small, and besides, the ending is so-so. The manager asked again, what about the rest? The guy replied that maybe the script was the artist from Manhwa. This script scored 67 points. And the bus driver who scored 62 points, well, these 2 scripts were also frankly weak. The manager thought for a moment and said that he very easily criticizes the scripts he reads. The manager believed that he needed to keep it up because he could objectively evaluate potential projects, since he would need to play them. After which the manager said that even Yoonmi approved of him. The girl showed that it was really cool, and he became a film critic. The manager said, however, that it must be understood that he cannot be very picky just because he has started to receive recognition. After which the manager lowered his head and said that nothing could be done about it, and he was ready to give him a script that their shoulder was here. After which the manager turned to the hall to knock on the script and put this stack right in front of the guy. The manager said that he hadn't even started working on this hyper sonar yet and asked him if he could really handle them. Jae-hui looked at the manager and smiled because he knew that he could do it very quickly. "Look at this thing in the script," and the guy replied that he would only need 10 minutes. The manager was surprised. The guy took this knock and left, and the manager did not understand how he could study all this in 10 minutes. The manager opened one of the scripts and told the guy to take a look, because one of the scripts was worth paying attention to. The guy asked again which one. It was a top dog script, and it was about boxing, interesting plot twists, and a well-thought-out ending. If you find a good director for it, there was a chance it would be a hit. When the guy ate this script, he noticed that he really scored 91 points, which is a very good rating, and it sounded really interesting. Well, there was one, but the main character was 1.60 m tall, and if he got this role, the rest of the actors had to be at least 2 m tall. Then the manager asked the guy again if he had anything interesting. He read one of the scenes and said that he didn't know yet. Since the only script among Ju-on with a score above 90 was The Guy Who Cried Wolf, it was a comedy about Korean gangsters that gave birth to Category B. Of course, he had no other choice, and he simply could not be sure of this one scene. The quality of the film certainly played a role. But a high score didn't mean a high probability of box office success, and he was just starting to gain recognition, so he needed to be selective in his projects. Therefore, he needed to understand as quickly as possible, for what it is better, he needed a good plot so that the risk of failure was minimal. He needed a film that would help his reputation grow. He needed some good, worthy role. At that moment, his manager called him. He handed him a script, which he thought was good. The film was supposed to be called The Fisherman. The manager asked, "How about this?" The guy picked up this script and started reading it. He still didn't understand how to relate to it. The manager said that this film will be directed by Han Men-hee Vita. Quite a good choice. The manager also said that his debut film received 2.6 million views, and the next one already 10.5 million, and these were not bad numbers. The manager at that moment asked him how he considered this project worthy of his participation, and asked if he wanted to play in this film. It was quite unexpected for the guy because he didn't expect that he would be able to get the role so quickly. He understood that the director, whose peak viewership was 10 million, was a serious bid for a blockbuster. But something was bothering him. He was somehow not satisfied with the quality rating. The manager said that if he was worried that it would not pass Khan, then he would hurry to reassure him, because they had already worked with this company a couple of times. And they are definitely seriously considering him for a supporting role. The guy was a little surprised that it was a supporting role. It seemed like a newcomer couldn't get a leading role. The manager said that these companies already have their own candidates for the leading role, for example, the actor Jo Seung-hee. In fact, everyone knew him since he played children's roles, and no one doubted his talent as such an actor in the leading role. It was clear why they would consider the candidacy of a novice actor like him, for example. It was clear that all paths were open to the renowned actor. Naturally, he could get a leading role in a good film. But if you get even a minor role in such a film, it will mean a lot. That is, to catch the last train, as they say. This film is guaranteed to become a masterpiece. The manager asked the guy if he was ready. Then he needed to contact him right then and there because dozens of actors were competing with each other for any role in this film. As the main manager said, the film Fisherman will be guaranteed short-term success. The guy saw this when he touched Surya. Of course, at that moment she thought that it would be better to choose him, but there was another scenario whose rating was much higher. The guy, when he felt that the script called The Shepherd had a rating of 93 points, he doubted a little. I don't understand why it bothers him so much. When the manager saw the guy state, he asked if he really liked the other script better, to which the guy replied that of all the scripts, he liked the indie film the most. The manager said that if Safa does it, it might not be the worst choice, but only if he is the lead actor. The guy asked again because Safa was a He Academy. The manager answered yes, but it is head and shoulders above other film companies. He explained that if his debut is an indie film, then at least because it is produced by the Safa Film Academy, this will give him more weight in the film industry. The distributor is usually a large company. The training at this academy is very high quality, so it is not surprising that the competition there is huge. The guy thought for a bit because he realized that now he knew why the quality rating was so high. Of course, this did not guarantee him great growth, but he was faced with a choice. One film had a director with millions of views, but a quality rating of only 60, while the other had a rating of 90 and a newbie director. He decided that there was no point in thinking anymore, so after a minute of silence, he turned to the manager. The manager raised his head, looked at the guy and asked if he would really choose the fisherman, and the second looked at him and didn't understand if he really didn't want to play the shepherd. Two employees looked at him and the guy was already completely ready for his choice. He said that he chooses. The fact that he likes it more and wants to play in both of these films sounded like a joyful message from his lips. At that moment, the makeup artist repeated his words and said that she also wanted to play in both films, after which she stated that it was simply unbelievable that he made exactly that choice. And she was shocked because she didn't expect such a plot twist. He has such an innocent face, but his ambitions are through the roof. After which the guy answered Yunmi not to tease him because in fact he decided to act in 2 films at once. The manager received a call on the phone. He pressed the earpiece and answered the call. Manager Park called him and told him that Jae Hui had just finished filming and they were taking him home, after which they told him something, and he said that he understood everything. At that moment, Jae Hui realized that they were talking about him. He wanted to find out as quickly as possible. Jack was in no hurry to tell him the news he had heard a few seconds ago. Then he began to speak officially about the fact that the administration of the company supervising the filming of the movie, Ryback, responded to their request and the right to casting was reserved for him. When the guy heard this news, he was so happy he couldn't even believe his ears. Jack told him that the casting would be closed and he only needed to prepare for improvisation. If he tried, he might get a more decent steering wheel. At that moment, the girl started to yawn. She said that she wanted him to read her the script. The guy asked again if she hadn't read it yet. Then she replied that she was waiting for confirmation that he would definitely be playing in this film. Jae Hui replied that he still had to go to casting. At that moment, she began to feel even more like she had no strength at all to read the script. She thought that the casting didn't matter. They would accept him anyway. These words surprised the guy a little. Jack, who was driving, also smiled because he had exactly the same opinion. The girl holding the script in her hands and reading it said that she was speaking accurately, and he could have no doubt. Of course, Jae Hui was very pleased, but despite the fact that they calmed him down, he still continued to worry. He was delighted and said that he should get one of the roles in this film in any case. After which he asked his manager what about the second film. They answered. Jack looked at the guy and said that he had sent his resume by email and there had been no response yet. After which Jack added that the letter had been read, so they would probably contact them soon. The guy thought that this was good. The girls asked the actor if he probably dreams of getting the lead role, to which he replied that it was obvious. She told him that it was not just obvious, but readable on his face, that he really does have a lot of ambition. The guy lowered his head and said that apparently he wanted too much, because he only had a few lines of experience in this series. He's really just a newbie. It's not a very significant film, but getting the lead role in it will still be difficult. At that moment, the guy looked out the car window, raised his head and saw that snow began to fall from the sky. At that moment, Jack turned to him and said that the guy should calm down a little because he was still young. And he has everything ahead of him. He needs to be a little patient because everything is going well for him. Jack said that, by the way, they were lucky because their vacation fell right on Christmas and the first lovely snow fell. Next year, they will have so much to do that they will not notice anything around them at all. So there is no point in wasting time. They need to enjoy it while they can. The guy turned his head and looked out the window. He replied that they definitely needed to enjoy it while they had the opportunity. After which he stretched out his hand and several snowflakes fell right into his palm. He thought that Jack was right. Jack turned to the guy and asked him to tell him something better. The guy asked again what exactly he wanted to know. Jack asked, turning his head because Christmas is coming soon. What are his plans for the holiday? The guy answered that he was thinking about it. Then Jack said that he should have warned that the guy has no right to secretly meet with the girl, to which he replied that he didn't intend to. Jack said he was joking and if he didn't have any plans then they'd better go to the office. Jae Hui looked out the window and saw the snow falling and he wanted to go visit his parents. So he asked Jack to drop him off in Sadang. The manager asked again if he wanted to go to his parents, to which the guy replied that he would spend that time with them. Jack said that then it was worth making a stop at the supermarket because he couldn't come to his parents empty-handed. The guy didn't understand why he was talking about this. Then Jack said that the guy should have already received his salary for the first and second series. And the video actually hasn't been home for a long time, so you can't show up to your parents empty-handed. The guy opened his bank account and saw that he had actually received his salary. His manager was right. Jae Hui was very happy and told the manager that they really needed to go to the store. Jae Hui go to the first store, made several purchases. It turned out that he can finally do it. After which he went into another store and made a few more purchases there. When he left the store, he thought that he could finally buy gifts for his parents and not come to them empty-handed. After all, he hadn't been to their house since the day of the casting. He thought that if he came to them empty-handed, they would scold him. When he approached the door, he pressed the handle. Entering the apartment in a good mood, he loudly shouted hello and said that it was him. He turned his head and saw his mother and father sitting there, and from the expression on their faces, they were very upset. After which his mother lost her temper and started shouting loudly at him about how he was a star. Then she stood up and pointed her finger at the door, shouting at him that he was a star, and was this really that famous actor? Then she came closer to the guy, asked his name, and asked if he was the one who starred in the drama Train to Youth. The guy told her not to upset him. After which his mother laughed and said that she was just so happy to see him. He was probably very busy and had constant filming. Did they really end? The guy said that actually no. But he has some free time and he decided to come in. Then he handed over the gifts and said that they were for her and her father. When his mother saw such a large number of gifts, she asked why her son said that he did not know their measurements, so he bought them by eye. Mom held the gifts in her hands and was very happy with them because she thought he had bought them something new and not brought someone else's hand-me-downs. Dad asked again if it was too expensive. The guy replied that he was given a salary for the series so they shouldn't worry about money. Mom immediately tried to try on one of the gifts and asked her son what he thought it suited her, because the size was right for her. The boy looked at his parents and thought that he should have brought them gifts a long time ago, but he didn't do it. His mother noticed that her son was looking at her without taking his eyes off her. She turned her head and looked at him, after which she asked the guy why he was looking at her like that. Hui couldn't give her an answer right away. His mother took him by the hand and told him not to worry. It was just that the son wanted to give his parents presents, and that was it. Hui thought that she was really telling the truth, and he shouldn't be upset. The guy said that next time he would give her something better. His mother said that, of course, took him by the shoulder and told him to sit down. His mother also said that the series her son is filming will start soon, and she wanted them to watch it together. At that moment, a signal sounded on the phone. The boy asked his father what kind of alarm clock it was. He replied that his mother had set it, that every time his series is shown in the morning or repeated in the evening, she does not miss it. Even though it can be repeated very late in the evening, she still sets the alarm and watches it. She wants to watch it every time it's on and has set an alarm on her phone for every time. The guy was very surprised that his mother could really stay awake for him just because she was watching a TV series where he played. But that's not all. The father said that he had to stop her from hanging a banner with this inscription on the balcony. The son thanked his father. At that moment, the mother came in and said that they were gossiping about her at her pub while she was looking for her phone. The son said that they needed to go quickly because the movie was starting. As soon as the film started, the mother said to her son, "Look, this is what you were on TV." They really showed it to her son where he played. And this son was together with his partner and his lover, according to the script with So Yu. His mother said that this is the girl Ye Ri. In fact, she was so well-mannered and good. She also told him to bring her to visit sometime. The guy did not understand why his mother thought that she was his girlfriend. But in fact, she was his character's girlfriend, and he explained this to his mother. His mother thought that it was the same thing. He was always so untouchable. Mom also asked about Moon Ke. She didn't understand what was wrong with him. She told him that he seemed to be sick. He was kind of tense. After which the mother turned sharply, looked at her son, and said that they didn't have any drag on the set. The guy replied that they don't fight. At that moment, Hui thought that he was sometimes scared by how intuition and his mother worked. At that moment, his phone rang and he had to answer the call. The guy apologized to his mother and said that he needed to call because it was very important for him. The guy wondered why his manager needed him and why he called him. After all, there was no more filming that day, so it was unclear why he would call him, but he had to call him back. When the guy opened the message from his manager, he was very surprised by what was written there. The managers told him that the director of the film, the shepherd, wanted to talk to him alone, and as soon as he saw this message, he should call back. The guy didn't waste time, and he also dialed Jack's phone number to talk to him. After he dialed Jack's number and Jack answered, the guy wanted to clarify something with him, namely that he really will need to meet with the director alone. Jack said that this is exactly so. Jackie repeated once again that everything should be as he wrote, and the director looked at his resume and requested a personal meeting. Jack said that he was very interested in him and congratulated him, after which he joked that next year they would have to put the gas pedal to the metal. The guy, having heard everything that the manager told him, thanked him and wished him good night. Mom wanted to know who called him. Then her son said that it was nothing special, after which he went silent. His mother interrupted him because she understood that he was already completely different from how she knew him before. So she put her hand on top of his hand so that he could feel its warmth. His mom said she doesn't know any details, but it's probably something good, and she's really happy for him that things are finally going well for him. The guy really wanted to think so, and in fact, everything was exactly as his mother said. Everything was gradually getting better for him. As predicted by General Manager Pak, They rose quite high in the ranking for the second half of 2024. And they were already on top, which is why his business also went up. And this time, when they were handing out the awards for the Best New Actor, Lim Ju-won was nominated and congratulated. He was a little upset because it was not he who received the award, but Lim Ju-won, also a novice actor. The guy watched the news and Jack told him that it doesn't matter as long as the show is on top. Jae-hui was very keen on his rating. The manager approached him. He didn't even understand what they wanted from him. The manager said that the director they were going to told him about the main character who has amazing charisma. The guy said that it looks like this. Then the manager started saying that he probably noticed it while reading the script because this is a person who stands above all social norms. The moment Jae-hui took this script into his hands, he needed to absorb it as quickly as possible to understand what it was about. After all, it was very surprising that the main character was above all social norms. When he absorbed this scenario, he understood that it was exactly as his manager had just said. The main character in this film did a great job of showing the criminal world through the eyes of a psychopath and a marginalized person. The guy raised his head and thought that the atmosphere of this scenario was really worth it, and he made the right choice. Within a few minutes they were there, so he lifted his leg to get out of the car. And I met a guy with glasses who said that he was very glad that they came. It was the same director who was supposed to make this film, and he also said it was an honor for him to meet them. The director offered the guy to sit down and said that they needed to talk over a snack. Jae-hui agreed. The director said that firstly he wants to thank them for paying attention to his work. He said that I send out commercial offers to an agent, and he couldn't even imagine that such a famous actor would come to his casting. The guy said that it was not like that at all. The director said that the actor is playing in one of the most popular dramas at the moment. Of course, he is wildly popular. At that moment, the director clenched his two fists and began to say that he really, as soon as he saw him, finished speaking. At that moment, Jae-hui wondered if this director really liked him that much. The director continued to talk about how he had caught a red snapper and that the red snapper was now in his hands. Nobody understood what was being discussed at all, and Jae-hui couldn't even imagine that he would be treated like that. The director said that the red snapper is the beauty of the sea and its bright iridescent scales remind him of Jae-hui. When the guy heard how they were talking about him, he laughed, but he was very pleased. After some time, they had a snack on the table. The director thought that this red fish was very similar to him. He talked about the fact that the video of his work and photographs from the resume, as well as his unrivaled performance in the film Train Youth. Having studied all this, he immediately understood. At that moment, the director pointed at him and said that he was exactly the one he needed. He was the ideal actor for this role. He spoke so loudly that everyone else turned and looked at the director. When the director said all this, it seemed that he was even a little tired. But then he went on to say that this actor has deep charisma and incredible acting talent. He praised him so much that he even started comparing him to Ho Yun. He really wanted him to play a role in his film. The guy said that he was flattered. The director at this point said that he had to warn, and the actor had to know that their film had a limited budget, and he wasn't sure he could pay as much as he usually charged. He warned that the rate would be much lower. The guy thought that he understood everything perfectly well, and if he wanted money, he would have chosen a film from a large company. But he made a different choice because he saw in this director the potential to create great masterpieces. The guy thought he needed to reassure the director about the money, so he told the director that he shouldn't worry about the money. The director said that he has something better, and he is sure that this film will be a shepherd and a takeoff for his career. He said that this film will definitely be nominated for domestic and foreign film awards, and he is confident that it will receive at least one. The director also said that he was absolutely sure that this role in this film would not harm his career, after which they shook hands. After all, directors usually weave intrigues and fight among themselves for the best actors, and he meets him for the first time. At that moment, the guy thought that he definitely needed to buy a suit because the director explained everything so beautifully. Jae-hui asked him again if he was going to participate in film festivals because it was very important to him. The director thought for a moment because he couldn't even imagine that this actor would agree to play in his film. He definitely started thanking the actor for agreeing and listening to him to the end and believing him. The actor told the director to sit down already because he felt very awkward. Then he added that he should also thank him for choosing him and giving him the opportunity to participate in such a grand project. After all, in fact, without exaggeration, he really thought that this film had all the makings of a masterpiece. And besides, the main character was very charismatic, and the message of the film was very good. Jae-hui thought that the graduates of SAFA are really talented. The guy asked the director, by the way, if he had any other projects. He was just curious. The director said that actually his movie was specifically with her, but he had one project that he wrote while preparing his portfolio at the Academy, after which the director said that he even somehow received a couple of awards, and he was the first person he would tell this to. The director put down his glass and said that he was very ashamed of what he had done before, because in fact, he shouldn't waste time on trifles. Jae-hui thought that if this director knew nothing about the profession and received an award for his first film, then he must have talent. And it also means that the main role was played by a talented actor whom he trusts. The guy told the director not to worry, and he is also confident that his new film will be a masterpiece. He then added that when he read the script, he saw that the director put his whole soul into the main character. Jae-hui told the director that he was already inspired and wanted to start work, and the director should not worry because he had already signed up for this film. The director laughed because he was the one who had to convince him, but instead it turned out the other way around and he was convinced. The guy said that the director was a good man, after which they drank together. The director said that Jae-hui flattered him and said that he had one question. The guy asked again what it was. The director asked him if there were any other good actors from his circle. The guy asked again if he really had a free role. Then the director said that he had already been recommended several actors, but all of these actors were known only for their good looks. Jae-hui said that he can find several actors, but the director has to tell what type he needs. The director said he needed an eccentric actor capable of playing a wide range of roles. When he thought about it for a bit, he decided that of all the people he knew, the most eccentric one capable of playing a variety of roles was his friend, and he could convince him to return to his son. Jae-hui stood up very quickly and went somewhere. He said that he was generally such that he knew, but right at that moment he would not be able to answer him. He would need to wait a little. The director looked at the guy, and the Cossack said that he would of course wait if he was offered such an actor. He just had to say the name, and he would immediately accept him for the role. At this moment, Jae-hui thought a little because he had come such a long way and achieved everything himself. But he still decided to offer it to his friend, who immediately agreed and was ready to quit his previous job as soon as possible. Jae-hui stood in front of the restaurant entrance, and it was clear from his face that he was very nervous. Jack came up to him and told him not to be nervous here, and if he wanted, he and Yunmi would wait for him outside. The girl said that it would be better this way, and they had nothing else to do anyway. The guy turned around, told them no, and went to the restaurant on his own to meet his friend. From the way he walked, it seemed that he was determined and that everything would work out for him. As he approached the door, he told the manager and Yunmi to come with him. After some time, they were sitting at the table and food was brought to them. When the girl saw such a quantity of food, she said that it was simply beautiful and wished everyone a bon appetit. Jack answered her that she also said that there was nothing to do here, and he was the only one who was saving her from overeating. At that moment, the waiter brought the wings. The waiter in this restaurant was his friend with whom he studied. He came to offer him a job, so he offered him to sit at the table. The guy didn't understand how he could be offered a role in a film in such an atmosphere where everyone was thinking only about food. His friend asked how he was doing, and it seems he's very busy filming if they haven't visited him lately. Jae-hui answered him that he just missed him. Then his friend said, "Is this really true? That's why he came with his manager and his stylist." His friend said that he was a quiet person, and when he became famous, he never looked in during all this time. The guy understood that if you wait for a person who is already happy with his life, it means risking everything and not getting any guaranteed results. Then Jae-hui started talking about how there were good times when they were filming together. At that moment, the guy thought that he really didn't know how to look him in the face at some point. His friend thought about it and then said that it was really funny, but it was quite a long time ago. Jae-hui tried to object to him because he thought that his friend was a good actor. That's why he came for him. But his friend replied that Jae-hui had only success and glory ahead of him, so there was no point in remembering the past. Then the guy said that at some point he was just nostalgic and asked for forgiveness for it. At that moment, there was a minute of TV series reviews on the TV screen, and they were supposed to present the hottest series of the day. At that moment, Jae-hui said that he had thought about it for a long time and told his friend that being a waiter was not his business. On TV, they talked about the series in which Jae-hui starred and did a review of this series. The guy got angry, shook his fist, hit the chair, and told his friend that among their peers, there was no actor better than him. They said on TV that they will continue filming the series this year. The guy brought everything up to the point of saying the most important thing. The series about which the show review was this very series trained to youth Jae-hui at this moment, focused his attention and said what he wanted to say. He suggested to his friend that he come back to them and then they would play in the movie together. After this conversation, Jae-hui watched one of the series while sitting in the back seat of the car and read it. He didn't really like everything that happened and how he offered the role to his friend, but he convinced himself that he was trying like a moss to convince Moon Sun-hyun to return to acting, but he didn't know what would come of it. His friend said okay, and he is ready. However, he needed to try, and then we will see. The guy understood that his answer was so wrong. However, at least his friend didn't refuse, and this gave him some hope. He just had to wait. Therefore, he decided that he should not be upset about this question, and it would be better for him to wait for an answer from his friend. Jack was talking to someone on the phone at the time, asking if they couldn't wait. It was written on his face that something had happened. He listened to everything that was said to him and answered well. Jae-hui noticed that his manager's face changed a lot, so he asked what was wrong with him, to which he heard the answer that he was tired of it. Jack blushed and said that there was trouble on the set again, and this time it was much more serious. Our manager said that Moon Ke is to blame for everything again, and it looks like this time he really screwed up. Jae-hui was also very upset because he understood that a big scandal was not needed on the set. The manager said that it was very urgent, and they needed to go to the office as quickly as possible. When they arrived, he said that they were already there. When I entered the set, I heard a scream that I needed to move faster and that I needed to save at least one take. It was unclear what was happening and why the work wasn't going well. When the guy came onto the set, he wanted to know why the filming was so chaotic. The director ran out to greet them, greeted the manager, and ran off somewhere very quickly with Jae-hui. Come to the guy, he started to say to forgive. He was probably very excited. Jae-hui said that not at all, and it would be better for him to calm down. Jack and the guy wanted to know what happened on the set. The director began to say that during the morning shooting, Murkei had a very big conflict with the main director. The actor started shouting loudly at the director and saying that he said that it had already been filmed. The director reprimanded him because his dialogues had been changed, and he wanted to ask why the actor was still speaking according to the old script. Because it was absolutely unacceptable. So many takes were ruined. But the actor pretended as if nothing had happened and continued to insist on his own, after which he simply turned around and left. The actor started yelling at the director that they should have been given at least a little time to learn the new script. This situation seemed to have destroyed all the success that they had, and now they were at a loss and didn't understand what to do now. Actor Moon Ke's manager has suffered a nervous breakdown and is unable to work and is currently in his car. Jack didn't understand maybe he should really give him time to learn the script, but he can learn the script pretty quickly. Jae-hui thought that he could understand Moon Ke because one of them with him was cut out and lines were added to the other. This could be a complication for him. And if he asks for time to learn, then we need to give him that opportunity. The guy didn't understand why the director was acting strangely, but on the other hand, he didn't understand because they gave him time. The director said that they were giving them time to learn the script because they would soon resume filming. The guy was surprised and asked again what. Then he asked again how much time they gave to learn new scripts. The director said more than an hour. The guy lowered his head and thought that it really wasn't about time at all. And it was too much for the actor who played the main character to behave like that. Jae-hui that his time has come and he can deal with his rival. The manager asked the director again if he really gave them an hour to learn the script, and he replied yes, because the filming had stopped, the whole crew was here, and the time for renting the set was limited. If on this day with these prices I will not finish the premiere of the new series, will be delayed for a whole week, and it was very scary. The director said that he tried to solve all the problems in other ways. He explained that the actor's manager could not utter a word and no words had any effect on him. The director said that they did everything to smooth things over as quickly as possible, but they were already tired. The guy understood that such conflicts arose repeatedly on the set when they were filming the main character. The way Moon Ke behaved, his behavior was tantamount to a direct message very far away. He spoke disdainfully not only to the director but also to the other employees who worked on the site. And this actor also treated the entire company that was filming this movie with disdain. When Jack heard everything the director told him, he sighed and said that he understood everything. After which he said that in that case he would go. The director asked again what he meant. And the manager told him to get ready for filming as quickly as possible, turn around and leave. The guy followed him trying to stop him and tell him that they were not obliged to solve this problem. He looked at his manager, but didn't know how to get through to him. After all, it could lead to the film not being released. The manager approached the guy. It was really none of their business, but they went anyway. Moonhui made himself in the car and watched what was happening from it. Did not seem to affect him at all. When his manager saw such a fuss, he said that it was time for them to go. to which the actor replied that he should sit quietly. And then he added, "Can't he see that he still hasn't finished learning the script?" At the same time, the guy raised his eyes to the ceiling and pretended that he was teaching him, saying that until he learned it completely, he would not get out of the car. His manager approached him and said that the director was very insistent that he return to the set. He warned that the lease on this property might soon expire, and the actor needs to return to the set as soon as possible. Moon Ke shouted at his manager to stop whining. He doesn't want to listen to anything. He shouted that it was enough to pick his brains if he could, then he could learn and play himself if he was so smart. And if the director gets on his nerves, it means he's doing a bad job of his job and it's not his fault at all. The actor told his manager that he was an idiot, and if he didn't want to be scolded, he needed to do his job properly. Jack and Jae-hui had already approached the car. Jack wanted to ask the manager if he really had no responsibility for his actor. They opened the door. At that moment, they heard Moon-hui yelling at his manager that those who can't work always blame others. Jack looked at Moon Ke and very calmly began to tell him that he couldn't allow himself to be shouted at like that. Jack smiled and looked at the actor, asking what was going on. Moon Ke answered him, "Can he see it himself? And can he really look at this scenario?" Jack also calmly answered him that he knew everything perfectly well and was not going to tolerate his antics. After which Jack said that the actor had already been sitting over this script for more than an hour. Moon-hui replied that he doesn't understand what they want to accuse him of because he is learning a new script. Then Jack told him he was like an experienced actor. Then it was unclear what he was doing. They only added one line to him, "How long can you learn it?" He took it from him and said that it was enough. It was time for him to finish with this, and he needed to continue working. The actor couldn't hold back and started swearing loudly and then swearing. Jack asked him again what he said. Then the actor added to him that even he behaved so incomprehensibly whose side he is on. After which the actor said that the manager should help him and not the director. This is their job. Moon Ke shook his fists and began to get even more hysterical. He did not understand why he was being bullied. He meant the director. When Jae-hui heard what this actor was saying, he was simply shocked and did not understand what he was even talking about. He wondered if it was only because Moon Ke was the lead that he could act like this. And is it really only because he feels like he's a star that he can disregard other people who work for him? Jae-hui couldn't hold back, and at that moment Moon Ke grabbed his shirt and pulled it, after which the guy lowered his head and told Moon Ke that you are an idiot and that he has completely forgotten how to talk like a human being because Jack was not his manager, but Jae-hui. Moon-hui did not expect such a turn of events. He was very surprised and continued to swear. Moon Ke said that he still can't learn the script and asked not to get on his nerves by saying that the guy has already memorized everything. Is it really that hard for him to understand? After which he told Jae-hui to let him go. At that moment, the guy thought that he had not realized until that moment that Song Moon Ke, who everyone considered ideal for leading roles, was given exactly these kinds of roles. He was not as talented as he thought himself to be, but rather he was simply untalented. In fact, he was an ordinary amateur with good looks. He had no other talent. His ideal was destroyed. The guy at that moment thought how pathetic he was that he had recently sincerely admired him. Jae-hui continued to hold him by the shirt and did not let go. Moon Ke broke away and took a step back. He asked the guy what he wanted. And then he added that even if he apologized, it would be too late, and he was just an idiot. Moon Ke told him that he would never become a celebrity, to which Jae-hui replied that he shouldn't think that he could do anything, because they weren't alone here. The manager stood silently watching what was happening between the two actors and did not interfere in this showdown. Jae-hui told Moon Ke that he is a proud person and can accept criticism even if he has to film a few more takes. Then his acting will not improve in any way because he is actually just talentless. Moon Ke answered him that there was a pig here, to which he heard in response that he was the pig. Moon Ke screamed so loudly that the entire set turned and looked in his direction. The guy didn't stop. He couldn't calm down and blamed Jae-hui for everything. The director also turned his head and looked at the actor who was supposed to play the main role. At some point, Moon Ke lost his temper and attacked Jae-hui with his fists, after which he grabbed the guy by the jacket. At that moment, Jae-hui was not upset at all, because he had expected such a reaction. Moon Ke began to complain to him, saying that he doesn't understand what he's doing. Jae-hui asked him why he was behaving like that. They shouted that they needed to be removed as soon as possible. Jack turned to Moon Ke and asked him to calm down and let Jae-hui go. It seemed that Moon Ke at that moment did not hear anyone at all. He only said what he wanted. He told everyone not to interfere because they did not understand anything. The director who saw this situation shouted to the assistant because he thought that it needed to be finished as quickly as possible. The director said that they had been waiting for so many hours for just one actor. This couldn't go on any longer, and that they had to cancel the filming. The assistant told the director that another film from this series was supposed to air that day, but the director said that it was canceled. He was so determined that the director thought that Moon Ke did not want to act. So he asked the rest of the staff who among them was ready to take responsibility for what was happening. Namely because Moon Kai will hurt Jae Hui if all this is not stopped very quickly. The guy finally thought that it happened exactly as he had expected before. It seemed like he didn't even lift a finger. Everything went according to plan, just as he wanted. Even the director gave a very vivid speech. The whole thing looked like a perfect script execution. The director approached the actor who played the main role and addressed him, trying to calm him down. The director said that in fact they promised him for his hand on his shoulder. Moon Ke still can't calm down, so he threw the director's hand off his shoulder. The director at that moment turned around and thanked the guy for his efforts because of the excellent work he had done. Moon Ke was even more upset by the director's words because he did not understand how he could say this, because he only played a minor role. After which the actor turned around abruptly and started to leave. He said that they all irritated him. The atmosphere on the set was really tense. Even the director clenched his fists. At that moment, he was stopped to stop behaving like that. He was told that after that incident, they promised that they would complete the filming. And also the manager appealed to him. I wanted him to return to the set. His manager begged him to think about the consequences that could follow such a scandal. The actor said that he really can't memorize lines so quickly, and they don't understand what they want from him. He said that he couldn't do it anymore because everyone on the set was really annoying him. At that moment, Jack, who was standing next to the guy, addressed all the gentlemen on the set. Jagu stretched his hands forward and said that it was already time for lunch. Had they really forgotten about it? The director added that it was good that he attacked. Jack, like a true manager, suggested that they continue filming after lunch. Umba is the best. Jae-hui noticed that it was finally over and he had a chance to eat. At that moment, the director approached Jae-hui and asked him to wait a minute. The guy was very surprised that the director approached him specifically and smiled, after which the director said maybe they could go to lunch together. When they entered the cafe, everyone was interested in the question of what was on the menu today, because they wanted to eat something tasty and forget about everything for a while. The director and Jae-hui took some food and sat down at a table. They had the opportunity to rest. The director asked the guy if he was probably stressed out, so he should eat to forget all of this. At this point, the director suddenly asked the guy what he thought about this situation on the set. The guy was a little embarrassed. He asked again what the director meant, after which the director said that Tim was not for lunch. After all, no matter what chaos was going on during our shoot, the guy said that he still sees this as an opportunity for himself. I don't understand what kind of opportunity he's talking about, but the guy said that it's exactly like that, because not long ago he was afraid that he'd never get a chance. The director raised his head as he looked at the guy and understood what kind of opportunity he was talking about here. The guy started telling that when he was an actor in a crowd scene, he never heard anyone say the words, "Let's go together." No one ever said that to him. Director, that it is very important for them unknown actors such invitations. It would be great if someone came up to him and said, for example, "Let's go to a shoot together," even if they are just extras and don't have a single line. The guy added that they are invited to continue filming in other movies. All this is usually a blessing, and of course famous actors do not know this or they have already forgotten it. It's always nice when someone treats a little-known actor like he's needed. This is exactly what makes his soul warm and makes it easier for him to live. And also a smile appears on his face and he can bring joy to others. At that moment, the guy thought he would never hear the next invitation to filming. The older warriors forgot about him, and the younger ones neglected him. All he could do was read scripts alone and dream that one day he would get the leading role. Well, suddenly a miracle happened to him, and this miracle allowed him to enjoy what is inaccessible to others. That's why he felt responsible. The director told the guy that he was a good guy. Because of this weirdo that happened to him, he took the place where someone more capable than him would have been. The guy turned his head, but still he was given an opportunity that he was not going to give up to the first person he met. So at this point, the guy said he should show the utmost respect. The director listened attentively to every word he said, because it was said from the heart. The guy believed that he should show his respect to those like him who was just recently an unknown actor. After which the guy stood up and told the director that they would see each other on the set. Lunch was over. Jae-hui stood up from the table where he was having lunch with the director and then lowered his head down in front of the unknown actor. The guy said that he should forgive, and probably he detained him. He can go and watch all this from the side, the director. The director liked everything that happened in front of his eyes, and for the first time that day a smile appeared on his face. So he told the guy that he was a good guy and that he completely shared his opinion. And the director also told him that he helped him make a very serious decision. Jae-hwa Your Barawam saw news that concerned him, and they said that a supporting actor shut up a star. This is the decision that the director made, and he increased his share of the airtime more and more. At the same time, Moon Ke played less and less as his participation in the series was gradually cut back. Moon Ke had been looking at him like a real wolf lately, ready to pounce at any moment. But he was already used to it. He felt more sorry for the director in this situation. His thoughts were interrupted by a telephone ringing very loudly in his hands. The guy looked, and it was the director who wanted to tell him something. The guy thought that he was the only one he was thinking about. Jae-hui answered the director's call, greeted him and asked how he could help. The director said that he didn't need a reason to call. He was just worried that the filming wasn't finished, and he went to the casting. The guy replied that he couldn't do anything about it. It was really hard for him, but he had to seize every opportunity. The director said that he was doing a great job, after which the director thanked the guy again for all the great scenes he had filmed and asked if he would be arriving soon. The director also told the guy that he had worked tirelessly and now he wished him a successful casting. The guy thanked the director and asked if he wanted anything else. The director didn't say anything. He only said what they would see on the set. The guy was pleased to hear this and he replied that they would indeed see each other on the set. Jack said that they had arrived and could get out. This was the place where another casco was supposed to take place. Go inside the building. The Tajik said that they were from the company. The guy was very surprised. Jack asked him if he was still standing there or if they were leaving. Jae-hui was a little confused because he saw such a large number of people who came to the checkout. The guy had previously thought that this suit would be private, but at that moment someone called him. And this guy also turned to the head manager. He asked them after he said hello if the filming was really over. Jae-hui answered him that the filming had indeed ended recently. Jack added that this guy was very busy. The manager said that it was great, and he was confidently on his way to the top of the film industry. The guy wanted to know what was going on at this casting because there were so many people there as if it was a meeting and not a casting. The manager said they wanted to have a meeting before his casting and asked them to wait outside. The guy wanted to see the director, to which he heard the answer that he had not arrived yet. Since most of the actors had already arrived, he would also arrive soon. This director was from UK Entertainment as one of the stupid variety agent of Korea, and actors are preparing Kang Dong-seok, the king of the film industry. The guy thought he had seen a lot of his upbringing like in big movies. In fact, it was not a joke agency, and watching what was happening before his eyes, it seemed to him as if he was watching a fight. The manager turned to the guy and said, "Is he nervous?" After all, the director wants to meet the actor in person before choosing a role for him. After all, an actor needs to see movement. Therefore, he would try to calm him down and also add that no one knows. Maybe these are his future colleagues and not competitors. But it still seemed to him that there were a lot of people there. He tried to observe them. In the daze of his eyes, he saw a man who quickly walked towards him. The man apologized for keeping them waiting and also said that he didn't think so many of them would come. It was the director. The first thing he said after he sat down at the table was that he was glad to meet them, after which he introduced himself and said that his name was Han Man-hee and that he was pleased that they had shown interest in his project. The guy was a little confused when he heard his name. He looked at the director and couldn't take his eyes off him, after which the director said that he was happy to chat with each of them alone, but he understood that they were busy people and found time for this casting, so it was better to get down to business. It was a project called The Fisherman, which consisted of a special prosecutor pursuing an insurance fraudster, nicknamed The Fisherman, genre action comedy. The plot developed very quickly with unexpected twists and turns. It should have been a very exciting and light movie. And what is more important is that the director is the author of a film with 10 million views. Of course, a lot of attention has already been drawn to this project. The financial side was agreed upon. The main helms were distributed. The guy asked the director again if all the main roles were really taken, which meant that the supporting helms and extras remained. The director replied that this was exactly the case, and he was ready to cast supporting roles for his project. The director looked at the seated actors and said that there were many talented actors among them, after which the director said that this was the end of the descriptive part, and he was ready to get down to business. He said that the feces will be held in the next office. They will call in turn, so he asked to be patient. Jae-hui calmed down a little and smiled. He liked it, so he said it was good. The director came to the door and began to open it. At that moment, he told them to stop being nervous because everything should work out for them. The director also added that Seung-hee would also like to watch the casting and will be present at it. All the actors who came to this casting were even more surprised. I don't understand what this could mean for them. After all, this man was simply a megastar, and his presence could be a little annoying. After which, the director went into the office of the elderly good luck to the young people who came to the bones. At that moment, Jae-hui was very surprised. He understood that if he made a good impression on him, it would open up huge prospects. When he entered the office for the casting, he saw a man sitting on a chair with one leg crossed over the other. It was that same Jo Seung-hee who was looking at him. There was a sign in front of him saying that he was an actor, and his name, seeing the guy, he said that it was time to start.